What is up, YouTube? I am Steve Thomas, choiceminis on your social media of choice, and we are back. Second stream. Better than the first, right? We always are improving. So thank you guys so much for everybody who tuned into the last one. I see we already have people and the viewers on this one, so I am happy to have you aboard. Tonight we are going to be working on probably my favorite project that I've come up with in a long time that came from a really stupid pun. So tonight, let's get into it. We're going to be working on the Orkland Raidaz. This is one of two Blood Bowl entries that I am making for, well, I want to take them all the way to Armies on Parade. So for those who don't know what Armies on Parade is, we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, I have to introduce, oh boy, I mean, he's waiting in the background, and I'm going to see how long I can keep my co-host, Bearded Adonis, and master of the blood-curdling battle cries in the middle of a public campsite, Adam Grimm, Beach Vacation Mando on IG. Adam, how's it going tonight?
You know, pretty good. Fulfilling day at work, covered in dirt, covered in dust, but I have a lovely alcoholic Arizona iced tea, because apparently that's a thing now, and it is tasty.
Hey man, that is super cool. I gotta say that Arizona iced tea, they got my respect for printing that price right on the can. That will get it for me literally every time. So, I mentioned it a little bit in the intro. We are working on the Orkland Raidaz tonight. So this is my test model for the Orkland Raidaz. This is this is the second of two test models that I tried out on. And we got him about, 85% of the way there. And I was like, this dude looks cool. Let's roll with it. So, the other army that we're going to be working on in this series, and you guys will be able to watch that one next Thursday as we get started painting more of possibly my favorite fantasy race. These are the new Helmgard Giants. I was about to say the new Helmgard Dwarves, but they are dwarves. The Raiders are based off of I guess a pun on the Oakland Raiders from the NFL, for those of you who aren't in North America and don't get a whole lot of view of those guys. They are a black on silver team. They used to be the Oakland Raiders, and then for a while they were the Los Angeles Raiders, and then before that they were the Oakland Raiders, because, you know. But I took a reimagining to their design a little bit. They're known as being one of the rough and tumble teams of the NFL, and I wanted to just take a little bit of a spin for it. So that's what we're working on tonight. Now, you heard me mention before that I wanted to take these to Armies on Parade. Armies on Parade is a competition. It's an international competition that Games Workshop runs, where you get to present your army, and you get a board, right? Like, you get a big diorama board that you're supposed to put on. And so that's going to be a part of this stream too. So we're going to start off by painting off our Raiders here, and then we're going to, switch back and forth between making it their board and making more of their uniform. And hey, I would love to hear it if you guys have got any ideas for what we should do for a board. So far, my best ideas, not the best ideas. They're not winners yet, but I'd like to do something around the idea of like a locker room or a playing field or something like that. So if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. You can throw them down in chat. You can put them on the live chat right now, or you can throw them in the comments if you're watching this after we streamed it. So throw them in chat. We're always going to check up on it. Adam,
Yes,
other than playing in the dirt all day, what you been up to?
Well, the other day I did actually begin the disassembly of the limited edition Boba Fett Black prototype helmet, because I want the electronics, specifically the automatic flip-down light-up rangefinder that I can see through. Other than that, that's pretty much all I've been up to, aside from going to bed at 9:30, because I have to get up before 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work.
Hey, that's the lovely part of working in landscaping, right? Is you're up with the dawn.
It is. I get to play with trees, and I play with dirt, and I learn to drive machines, which is always fun.
So we're starting off, thank you for sharing. My day has mostly been dominated by news, and we will get to it in the news section. I don't want to give too much away yet, but we will get there. We're starting off with our models here, and we're going to work pretty quickly tonight to get a base coat on all of them. So I do have our friendly little Orkland Raidaz here. You can see most of them are lined up along the side here, but I did a little bit of prep, obviously off screen with these guys before we ever got into the whole screen thing. I've gone over these. They just got shot with it's USN Ghost Gray. So it's a Vallejo primer. USN Light Ghost Gray. That is a primer from Vallejo model paint. It happens to be one that I just like. It's a neutral gray color. Actually, look up. This guy right here. There you go. So if you're looking for how you prime them, so I prime them in that, and then I give these guys an oil wash so that I can start to see some of the volumes that are on these. The biggest part of having all the volume and stuff picked out on it is it really starts letting me decide where we want to put colors and things and how we want reflections to look and how all that stuff is going to get segmented out. So that's a big part of what we're doing when we're priming these models. Now, at some point in the near future, we will run over some models and I will show you how I go through that process. But tonight we're going to get started with getting our base coats down. So on all these models, I've already sort of, well, you can see, I've already started working my way through our little test model here. Some of you on Instagram may have seen the first test model that I abandoned for these guys. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to do black on black for their uniform. And a big part of doing blacks is making blacks interesting. I feel like I got part way with this model, but not all the way, like not all the way that we want to get to. But one of the parts that I am pretty happy with is the difference between glossy black surfaces and matte black surfaces. And this is something that I wanted to work on as a modeler, as a painter, figure out how that works. So I gave myself a little bit of a cheat, and I painted Honk and Tonk, the Orks of Learning. One of them, they are both painted in exactly the same paint, so they both have this really matte paint on them. This matte black is called Black 2.0. Someday I will tell the story of Black 2.0 because it is amazing, and I'm just happy because Initial Fortune never had it. But this guy got hit after we put that black down with gloss varnish, so you can see just how much of a difference as far as light goes, like how those things look so different from one another, even though they are technically the same color. So let's get into it. Let's start. I'm actually going to be airbrushing a lot of this. So what I'm going to be putting down to sort of define our volumes and our shapes is I am going to be using a combination of Abyssal Blue, Eclipse Gray, and White Sands. And you'll notice that none of those colors are black or white, which if you look at our finished model here, like if you look at our test model, you can see that this is basically monochrome except for the skin and some of the weathering, right? So we can take a look at his body and like there is a lot of black on here, or at least it looks very much like black. A lot of that is just using extremes of color to really highlight areas. But yeah, we'll get into how all that works in a second here. Sorry, I'm just gonna choke on myself here. I'm gonna take a sip of something to clear my throat here as I die slowly. Adam, safely.
Make sure it is not your paintbrush cup and is actually your drink cup.
You know what?
No one likes paint water.
So I watch a lot of other YouTubers on and painting streams and stuff. And one guy on there, Vince Venturella, Hobby Cheating, he does a series called Interviews with an Artist, where he talks to other mini painters. And one of the questions he always asks is which paint tastes best? Because, Adam, my secret shame is that I eat all the paint. All of it.
You know, I myself have definitely tasted some of my paints. I can say that the Citadel paints by Games Workshop, not super tasty. If I had to eat paints, I would probably choose Vallejo.
Oh, so everybody says the same thing. It's always Vallejo model air, and it's because the medium that Vallejo uses is sweet. And okay, I can agree to that to a certain extent. But there is an upper limit to the amount of Vallejo model air I'll eat. This is going to sound disgusting, airbrush thinner. And I don't want to tell you why I know what airbrush thinner tastes like. What I am doing right now is I'm going to load up the cup. So this is Abyssal Blue. This is going to be our deep shadow color. And you'll notice that I've actually taken a deep blue shadow color. And then I've taken sort of a warm off-white with white sand here. So I'm trying to use opposing sides of the color wheel. We can get into why I'm using color theory and stuff at some point. But for right now, let's get paint on a model. Does that sound good?
I think that sounds great.
So Adam, you got any ideas for a board we could use? Any ideas for that sort of stuff yet?
You know what? I did kind of latch on to the locker room when you said it.
Yeah.
Just because I think an orc Blood Bowl team in the locker room would be completely chaotic and amazing at the same time.
Yeah, man. I really like the idea of a locker room. I gotta say, like, what is the Orkland Raidaz locker room look like in your mind? Like, I always, for whatever reason, whenever I'm looking at like, and Adam, let me know if we are getting way too much of my airbrush in the mix. If you can hear it too much, just let me know.
I can hear it, but it's not overpowering your voice. So
Good. All right, then we'll keep going. If not, I might have to spend more time on mute, and that would be sad for me. But I always kind of get caught up in the. Put some more paint in. I always get caught up on the like 40k orc aesthetic, where it's a lot of rust, a lot of like beaten up stuff. But like this is also supposed to be a professional sports ball team, right? Like there's a Blood Bowl team. These are the like heroes of the old world playing their sport, right? So they wouldn't be messing about in like a rusty old shack, would they?
no, like I guess it would depend. Like I don't know a lot about Blood Bowl, so like I don't know if like each team has like a home pitch, or if they all just kind of travel to one place and just play on the same field.
You know what? This is our game now. We're going to decide it however we want it. So why don't we decide that they have their own crazy wild pitch that they get to play on that is of their own design and desire.
Okay, well, going off of that, seeing some of the old hammer orc scenery, definitely a lot of like mammoth tusky and like stretched animal hides.
See, my thought was, and this is, I mean, they're Raidaz, right? So they're basically pirates.
Yeah, that is true. So
And-
maybe
and-
the inside of the locker room's a pirate ship?
Well, I was thinking that, and I was like, well, why wouldn't they just keep being pirates, right? Like what could take an honest orc, away from the life of being an awesome orc pirate? So I don't know, like pirate ship maybe. That sounds kind of fun. I do like the idea of it, but I'm not sold on it yet. So I did a little bit of a demo for basing. I was thinking like, what if it is a burned out pirate ship? Like, you know, these orcs were, you know, they were Raidaz. They were doing the raiding, and then you know, one day pirate ship crashes. They're stuck on land, and then they decide, or they like find out that, you know, oh, hey, we can like beat up people for money, and we're good at that because, again, orcs. So why don't we do that? Because I don't know. Well, you said you haven't seen a lot about Blood Bowl, but Blood Bowl is like the ultraviolet fantasy version of the NFL. So like, you beat people up, you kill them on the field, like everybody has a hootin' good time with the death and the mangling. So it seems like something that a bunch of orcs would definitely get into at some point, like especially if your ship burns.
Yeah, like that is true. While I am not a real world fan of the game football, I do feel that the orcs' favorite sport either has to be like rugby or hockey. And I'm only saying hockey because I'm Canadian and it is the greatest sport known to mankind.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you.
But
played a lot of hockey as a kid,
so did I.
but
Yeah, like
so just to give everybody sort of an update of what I'm doing here on the models, I'm just going in and finding deep spots on the model, so you guys can see that even when this stuff is still wet, it isn't black, right? And even if we look at our test models and stuff, this isn't black. I'm going through to make a tint on the model so that I'm sort of finding some color interest really, really early in the model. I find that this helps a lot for me with defining shapes and stuff. So I'm just going to keep doing that as Adam and I are talking. That way I'm not constantly interrupting myself with processing stuff. But I'm also, for right now, I am putting this basically density. So I am going straight up and down, like if the light was coming from directly above them, where would the light be hitting? Where would we have these more shadowed areas? So I'm trying to keep this guy on screen. I changed the setup since our last stream a little bit so that you guys can have it on screen more frequently. But that's all I'm doing for right now. Is just sort of shooting color up from the bottom, trying to cover off a lot of these surfaces. We'll knock this stuff around a lot more as we get into midtones and then to highlights as well. So. Oh boy. So, I don't think I can contain myself. I know that this, we'll skip over it in the news because I have to say this is possibly the most excited I've been for a video game, possibly ever. You know what I'm talking about, Adam?
I do. It is a very, very good game. I am actually, since you told me, I am quite excited for it because I did just recently kind of get back into playing the first one.
That's
and
fair.
realizing, oh man, this is hard without like my cousins here hitting my mana potions.
So, I hope we gave it away with mana potions, but if not, for those of you who are joining in on with us tonight, Diablo 2 Resurrected. This is, if there is a game that defines my late teen era, that is Diablo 2 Resurrected. So Diablo 2 Resurrected, for those of you who don't know, Blizzard, Activision undertook the expense and possibly the great boon to go out there and remake Diablo 2. Now, how much of a remake it is up for debate, but it is Diablo 2. It's going to run in 4K graphics. Today it's only running in 1080p 60, but it is all new, all updated graphics. So you can swap back and forth just like they did with StarCraft. So you can swap back and forth between legacy graphics mode and current graphics mode, which I'm not gonna lie, I lost most of the day to watching my favorite streamer, Mr. Llama C. There's a link to him in the description if you guys want to go and check him out right now. I know he is streaming still. Maybe he's done. He was on from like 11 o'clock local here this morning, I guess 10 o'clock in his time. He has been streaming all day. And man, just seeing Diablo 2, seeing it in a way that I remember watching it as a teen. You know, Adam, you've gone back to old games and been like, oh, this doesn't look like I remember.
The only one that actually did was Blakestone, Aliens of Gold, but I mean, 16-bit first-person shooter game can't really get any better than that, in my opinion. Well, it can, but I was feeling some nostalgia, and that one tickled my fancy.
Yeah, that's fair. I watched Llama. I'm hoping that I get my alpha key tomorrow because they haven't announced who is on the closed alpha. I'm hoping that I get a key, but it is in alpha right now, so there are not a ton of bugs, but there are definitely some bugs in the game right now. But watching him play that game. It honestly, as I was watching him play, I was like, this is what I remember Diablo looking like when I was a kid. Like that sense of like, this is what I saw the first time I booted up and I watched Marius follow the Wanderer through, all of Sanctuary. Like that is, the graphics now look as spectacular as I remember the graphics looking way back in Heal. Like, it looks absolutely incredible. I am super impressed with the team that did it, which is actually the team that did the update are the same guys that did the Tony Hawk refresh. So like Tony Hawk 1-2 came out late last year, I guess earlier this year. I don't remember if it was this year or last year because every day is the same day because 2020.
It was, I think it was late last year.
But man, there's just something about the way that they see that game and the way that they have reproduced the graphics and stuff that were in there that it brought me instantly back, and I've had a huge smile on my face and not been the most productive employee today because I kind of got lost in watching nostalgia streams. So yeah, that has been my day.
That does happen. Another game I know of where they updated the graphics, but also give you the option to like switch back to the original ones is the remastered version of Halo Combat Enhanced.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
They'd done that for Halo.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the remaster is now a few years old, so even the remastered graphics aren't quite as good. But I definitely replayed that in the original graphics and then immediately restarted it with the updated graphics because I am that kind of nerd.
That's fair. That's fair. I am so bad at first-person shooters that I played Halo. I think I played all the way up to Halo 3, and I played them like live, back-to-back, just sort of going through. Never much of a multiplayer guy, mostly because for a long time, one of my roommates was a world-ranked Team Fortress player. No, it was CSGO. But like, he was really good, and having my butt handed to me constantly because I'm not that player. Like if you are looking for like response and Twitch, like fast Twitch gaming, catch me later with it. But it is one of those things that I remember having a good time with all the Halos up to Halo 3. I think I got into ODST. Maybe I got to ODST.
I never actually played ODST.
Oh, it was.
I do have the Halo Master Chief Collection on my Xbox currently, and I am playing through all of them in chronological order.
ODST is fun and a departure, and I know not everybody loved ODST. I liked ODST just because you weren't Master Chief. Like, I don't even think you were an actual smart, to be honest with you.
You are an orbital drop shock trooper in that one. You are just a mere mortal. I still think Halo Reach is probably my favorite one. Again, like only until recently have I become kind of more of a online gamer, and that's mostly just Warzone with my buddies, because sometimes it's fun to do that.
That's fair. I wish I had more patience for online gaming. I have probably the game, and this is going to sound a little sad, I think. The game I probably have the most online time with is Stardew Valley, as far as computer games go. I have hundreds of hours into StarCraft, into Diablo and Diablo 2, into like the Civ games. I do not play online that much. I just don't. I don't know what it's not that I like online play or games. Like I have played plenty of LAN games, all of them. But like as far as just like open online, not that much. Not that much. I don't know if it's just like I never got hit by the MMO bug or anything either. Like it's just a big gap in my
Um, I have I have put maybe 40 hours into WoW, just because I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I feel like playing an orc, and playing an orc in Skyrim is just kind of not satisfying.
Playing an orc in Skyrim is like playing everything else in Skyrim, where it's like this literally makes no difference.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of missed potential, in my opinion, of the orcs in Skyrim, where like essentially all you get like an unofficial side quest where you have to go and fight all of the tribe leaders of each orc little city, but like it doesn't matter. It has no effect on the game. You can do that with whatever race you choose to play as.
I'm pretty sure I've never actually played as an orc, and I've definitely 100% of the game. Don't think that I'm hating on Skyrim. It's just that Skyrim has one story.
Yes. So yeah, I got into WoW simply to play a big burly orc. I do kind of wish the Warhammer Online was still going, so I could play a Warhammer orc, because Warhammer orcs, both fantasy and 40k, including the new Sigmarine orcs, are my favorite kind of iterations of orcs. I like the big hulky burliness, the big like underbite jaw with huge tusks, the beady little red eyes. I'm not sure actually if like old hammer fantasy orcs are fungus like 40k orcs are. I don't believe they are.
So I did some digging on this because I was interested in the same way that you were. I was like, are they angry space fungus? Am I painting angry space fungus again? Because I like painting orcs. Orcs are fun. Like they're just a fun. They're not great in any of the games they're in, but they're fun to paint. So it's one of those things where I was like, I wonder if I am painting space fungus. Turns out no. Sad, but no. And of course, if I'm wrong, I would love to hear about it in chat. You guys, if somebody else out there actually knows the origin of the Age of Sigmar / Old Hammer orcs, I'd love to hear it, because I spent about 4 seconds on Google and was like, and that was pretty much the end of my searching, because, you know, other things get in the way, man. Sometimes just other stuff gets in the way. So, now that we've got all these guys painted, I'm just actually cleaning out the cup right now on my airbrush. You can do everything that I'm doing here with about the same amount of work. You can do it all with just regular brushes. So, like, don't think, like, as you're watching the stream, don't think like, hey, I can't believe I have to buy an airbrush. Don't buy an airbrush. Take an extra, like, 20 minutes and do it by hand. Like, really, all I'm doing right now is putting on a pretty thin base coat of this old blue color. So this is any dark blue, any dark desaturated blue you've got in your color, like in your palette or in your box of colors or your box of paints. Like, the reason I use scale 75 paints is because I feel like the line is fairly consistent and accessible. When you get into things like, there are many other paint companies out there that make perfectly good paint. I just happen to like scale 75 because it is a limited color palette, and I like most of the colors that they include. For years I painted with Vallejo, I painted with Citadel paint. Like, the only reason why I use scale color as much as I do right now is...
We do have a comment, Steve.
I see
the
music is a little loud.
seem-
Give me
Yeah.
1 second. I will fix that for everyone. Because that is reasonable. Thanks, V. Also, hey V, how's it going? Maybe not fix it quite that much. How's that going? Also, I will change the music so that it's not on single track repeat. How about let's get into our actual mix for the night. Boy, forgot about that one. Man, I am looking forward to, I have Stream Deck on its way so that I can put a bunch of hotkeys together visually in front of me so that I can actually see or just hit a single button and it'll change us between scenes as opposed to like having to hit 6 things at once. Or I guess I could take like 20 minutes and actually set up the hotkeys in OBS, but so far no. So far no. So now that I've cleaned out my airbrush, all I'm doing is I'm switching over now to white sand. And again, I'm going to shoot this straight because I'm going to use our mid-tone, which is the, the Eclipse Gray. I'm going to use that mid-tone really to sort of blend these colors together. Again, this is really rough work that we're doing with the airbrush right now, so we're not trying to like get perfect blends or anything. We're literally at this point in time just trying to shoot some color onto the model to start blocking in big features of it. Adam, what's your favorite paint brand right now, man?
I am actually still a huge fan of Vallejo.
Yeah.
I haven't actually run into any issues yet with using their paints. And dropper bottles.
Yeah.
You hear that,
dropper
Games
bottles are
Workshop?
huge.
Dropper bottles.
For me, and the reason why I swapped over to scale 75 is because just for me, there's a lot of options to be made in Vallejo. I know that just Vallejo model color, which is the majority of the Vallejo paints that I used to use were Vallejo model color. Just in Vallejo model color, we're looking at 240 some odd colors. And that's a lot of choice. And it means that, hey, you don't have to mix paint, right? Like paint just comes out of the pot. I'm just testing this for consistency on my thumb so you guys can see there. I'm just shooting it on there to see how the coverage is. That's about what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for like huge coverage right now. But all of that choice, it's great because I never have to mix a color again. And I assume that you don't frequently find yourself having to mix a whole bunch of colors, right? With Vallejo?
Not. There's been the occasional time where I have, and that's mostly just due to my laziness and not wanting to go to the hobby shop to get the colors I want. So I mix them.
Hey, that's fair.
Which usually adds a fun little mix where sometimes when I come back to a mini, they might have slightly different shades of a particular color on them, but I am okay with that because that is just me.
Hey, that's fair. And I mean, if I wasn't going for competition painting on these, there's nothing, again, there is literally nothing wrong with Vallejo or Citadel or whatever paints you want to use. It's always about really, to me, it comes down to the amount of work that I want to put into to painting with them, right? For me, color choice is always a huge problem not a huge problem. It is part of what I don't like about my process when I'm using Vallejo paint, right? They are great paints. They are much nicer than some of their competitors, but it always, to me, seems like I'm searching for the right paint at the hobby store and not necessarily just working with the tools I've got, right? So like in the case of these models, I'm working within a selected palette. I'm mixing colors basically on the model as we go here, but I am happy with how these scale color paints are. I don't feel like I'm missing any color, and I get a way more, I don't want to say refined, but select palette to work from. And that sort of gives me inspiration to look at paint schemes that I might not otherwise think of, right? Because you're looking at fewer paints, you're looking more at mixing and blending when you are trying to find stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that is fair. Like I'm in a bit of a painting funk myself.
Hey, that's fine. We all hit that part of the hobby.
Yeah, I think my butchered paint job on my DKOK, for those not in the know, that is Death Corps of Krieg kill team. I rushed it, and I'm not happy with it, and I haven't used those minis since in a game or even taken them out of the box I put them in because I'm ashamed of my work.
Hey, it happens, man. I can show you plenty of shameful models, even some that are sitting around me right now that I'm, even at the time, I maybe was happy with them on the day that I painted it, but have since been like, you know what, I can do better than this. And one thing I'm really challenging myself to do is go back and find those models again and find that passion that originally took me to that model, and try and rekindle it, right? Try and bring that feeling back, even if all I do is strip that model and say, hey, buddy, someday I'll be back to finish that paint job on you. Maybe sometimes that's all you can really do is just say like, hey, someday I will be back to you, and just take a step back. Whether you strip them or not, whether you just leave them on a shelf to be like, someday I'll be back to touch you. So you can also see that I am adding some variety to how I'm highlighting these guys. Just giving different perspectives with light. So on this this is one of the black orcs. This is one of the guys who's a blitzer or is really good at hitting people. I decided that I wanted to highlight this guy coming in from light, basically coming in and shining down as if it were this way, right? Whereas this one, I wanted the light coming over his shoulder because I really want to make some striking changes with the lighting around his face and that mask and stuff that he's wearing. So I really wanted to do some stuff where I could have some deep shadows on the other side of his face. And you'll notice even when I went through and painted that abyssal blue down towards the bottom of him, I didn't necessarily have that plan yet. So I'm gonna have to come back with abyssal blue and build in more shadows on that side. But that's all. We're adding variety to this army because there are only so many sculpts in it, right? There's only I believe it's 6 sculpts in this army, so there's 2 of each one. Okay, I'm gonna make my variety, instead of being about, painting each one of them completely uniquely, because we got a squad of guys. They gotta look like they're on a team, right? I'm gonna choose some different ways of highlighting and placing light on the model so that it looks, so that they do have some differences to them, so they are noticeably different one to the next, right? And part of that is, we're gonna get the primer down this week. That is my hope for this stream. But by the time we come back, I'll have a little bit of visual reference that we can all look at together, and how I decide to actually deal with. Once I've decided where light is coming from, it's really hard to just like look at a model and be like, okay, I got it forever. Now I know where the light's coming from. We can paint this guy, and it will totally work out. I actually do go through, especially with stuff that I'm. Oh, we just lost the palette. Hang on. Oh. I do go through. There we go. We're back. Hanging out over there. I do go through, and I actually use Photoshop on my computer and spend far too much time looking at my own paint jobs and being like, man, I am sometimes okay at this, or man, there is a lot of room for improvement on this model. Let's get down to business, right? Because that's all this hobby really is how much time you can put into. Like you said that, you have some DKOK guys on a botch paint job. Dude, that's fine. The worst thing that could possibly happen is that you never pick them up again, right? Just strip those models down, paint them again. It's not that hard.
Yeah, they will. I will come back to them. The paint job on them is not terribly complicated. It was a poor execution, and I made a very amateur mini painter's mistake where I did not thin my paints down enough.
Ooh, you gotta thin those paints, man.
Yeah. That's kind of what made me feel bad, and I'm about. Some of my Flesh Terror's kill team do have the black shoulder pads. That's really about as far as I got on them. I need to get a new brush. My standard, my orange tip. Even though they no longer sell them as orange tips. They are just the standard. Is a little raggedy. I do need to invest in some higher quality brushes.
So if there's one thing that really changed my painting, like as a mini painter, it was when I stopped buying. There was a time where I decided, I was like, I want to get better at this hobby, and I've watched enough dudes on YouTube extol the virtues of Kolinsky sable brushes, and that was when I stopped buying just the Citadel and Army Painter brushes. And I know there are some people out there who are going to be like, how dare you besmirch the name of Citadel and the Army Painter? How dare you, sir? And to you guys, I say like, hey, cool. I'm not trying to say that they're bad. They're not what I want to paint with anymore. I spent a lot of time struggling with split tips, and like I was great. I have always had Mastersons around. I've always the Masters brush cleanser around. I've always had that stuff to like try and take care of my brushes, but like there comes a day where no matter how good your synthetic brush is or your like sort of mid-quality brush is, it's just not gonna go. B, how's the sound? If you could tell us in chat, that would be cool. Or you can hit us on Discord, because anybody, if you're out there, you can hit the link tree on our channel and you can join up on our Discord. We would love to have you guys in there, because it's boring when it's just Adam and I talking, and you never know, we might bring you on the show. I'd be happy to have other people. Adam, would you be happy to have other people around?
Oh, most definitely. I do love me some other people.
Hey, it's not that we're bored with each other already. This is only episode 2, man. But like,
yeah, it's just it's fun to have another opinion, because like you and I both kind of know where each of us sits on certain minis and whatnot.
Oh yeah. Speaking of certain minis and whatnot, is it time? Is it?
It is.
Time?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
3.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we will wait for it then. In the meantime, you guys can see that I'm just going back really quickly. I've got a little bit more of this white sand in my brush. And again, I'm just sort of reinforcing the areas that I know I want to have highlighted. And I am certain that watching this on stream, I know that it is only sort of showing up, but I can tell you that we are adding this highlight tone in places that I know that we are going to need it. So, quickly cycle through these guys one more time, hopefully, before we're into our next segment. But Adam, if you could choose any fantasy race with which to make a team in whatever sport you choose, who would you choose and what sport?
I may have already kind of alluded to this, but I think I would love to make an orc hockey team.
That's fair. That
like,
is fair.
Not just because I'm Canadian and I definitely live up to the trope of loving hockey, and I think it is the most superior sport on the planet.
That's fair.
But I honestly feel that hockey would be like the sport that drew orcs to it the most, because it's fast-paced, it's extremely violent, and they get to hit stuff with sticks. And who doesn't like hitting stuff with sticks?
That's totally fair. Now, I guess it sort of depends on what our definition of sport is. But a part of me wants to say taking halflings to a professional eating competition? Is that a sport? Does it
You know what?
count?
I believe it does.
If
that
it's
would
on
count.
If it's on ESPN, that's a sport, right?
I think it's like if it's on ESPN and it's got like an official set of rules, then I believe it would count.
I mean, they used
Which
to play poker
competitive
when we
eating?
were like teenagers, young adults.
That's very true. Yeah, I do remember they briefly brought back rollerball too.
Hey, there was a sport that I didn't
Or
remember
not
existed until right now.
Not rollerball. The roller skating game where they hit each other and
Yeah.
skate real fast around a check. Roller derby, that's the one. Roller
Thank
derby.
you.
Rollerball is a 70s sci-fi sports movie about,
That got remade
That's
in the early 2000s.
yeah, and it's awful.
Oh boy,
Um,
is it. And by awful, you mean awfully great.
Yes,
No,
I mean
it's just straight up awful. You were
it's
correct the first time.
it is so bad. The original from the 70s is actually not bad. Like
Is it?
it's still super cheesy, and it's not very good, but it is leaps and bounds better than the early 2000s remake. I guarantee that.
Totally fair. I will take your word on it. I am not an authority on the movie Rollerball, either version of it. All I remember is I think I saw it in theater after we snuck out of watching Congo for the like third or fourth time. Do you remember that movie? It was an awful movie. At any rate.
Congo?
Yep. And we saw Rollerball because the
Um,
cheap theater that was playing one was also playing the other. So all I'm doing here, and I'll show you guys on stream, I'm just clearing out my airbrush. So I have a piece of makeup sponge. It's just a really fine foam sponge that I jam onto the tip of my airbrush until it is literally blocking the air from traveling out of the airbrush. And I'm just blowing it back into the cup here with some airbrush thinner, or sorry, this is actually airbrush cleaner. And then I just blow it out into, I've got a cup off to the side that you guys can't see here, that I blow the extra out of the airbrush with, because if there is one thing about airbrushes is that they only work when they are clean and happy. If they are not clean and happy, no airbrush. No airbrush for you.
Yes, I have had many of like, oh, I'm gonna paint, but I need to use my airbrush. Oh boy, did I not clean this out after the last time I used it, because it is super clogged. But on that note, Steve,
Yo.
it is now time for the news.
Oh boy, newsy news time, everybody. All right, let's
News
move
time.
into the news. So, as we did last week with our, last stream. Wow, it was only a couple days ago. Okay, on the last stream, we talked a little bit about sci-fi news. This week, we are talking about fantasy news. If I can actually get the fantasy news part of the news to come up. Yes, yes.
And hopefully this news segment, you guys can actually hear us talking.
Oh boy, give me 1 second. I apologize. It has decided that it no longer wants to do image sharing. Sorry, everybody. 1 second here. I will throw us back onto the live scene while we're waiting for me to be less incompetent. All right, give me like 2 seconds while we get into the news. But Adam, we can talk about the news without actually showing what's in the news. So, first item that I put on there, and this is something I think we were both pretty excited for.
Oh man, when you first told me about this and showed me, I was so excited.
Yeah, so this is, we will eventually get to a picture at some point in the hopefully nearest future. But in the meantime, we will talk about it. So, WizKids, makers of all of the thousands and thousands now it feels like of D&D minis, the pre-primed ones, has decided to make. Oh boy, we are so close. Sorry, they've decided to make not just a dragon, because a dragon is cool, but they decided to make this thing. This is Tiamat, god of evil dragons, and I know. There have been Tiamat models before. There have even been Tiamat models by WizKids before. But the mind-blowing part of this model is how giant that thing is. So this is the Tiamat model from WizKids that you could buy before. I don't know if anybody else saw these. I know they were in Century Box. You could buy a Tiamat or a Bahamut from... I can't even remember what the name of that game was where you could buy a bunch of dragons and have them fight. Dragonwing. There we go. D&D Dragonwing. And they had Tiamat and Bahamut, and this is to scale. This absolutely, it's not even a mini anymore. This thing is in 28mm scale, so it is from wingtip to wingtip, like 28 inches across and 18 inches tall. It is enormous, and it is $300. Adam, I am clearly overly excited about this, but dude, look at this thing. That is insanity.
It is amazing. Like, I remember ye oldie days, back when we were allowed to congregate in person, the very first ever D&D camping trip we had, where we fought an ancient red dragon. And our DM at the time had the hardest time not letting it slip that we were playing with that. One, the model he borrowed was from my roommate, so he told me. But also, it barely fit inside of a milk crate.
Oh yeah,
and
this thing is like this thing is like 5 times
so
that
much
size.
bigger.
Oh yeah,
it is so big.
It is ridiculously big. And to give you guys an idea, so I like dragons. I like Smaug from The Lord of the Rings / The Hobbit. Well, actually, just from The Hobbit. He dies in the end. Whatever. Smaug is a great model, and there is a great sculpt from Games Workshop It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is $499 in Canada here. It is obviously less than that in other parts of the world. But like 499 Canadian dollars. This thing is $399 US, so they'll be about the same price. This thing is 4 times the size of that Smaug model. Like, I love you, Games Workshop, and I know that this WizCut model is going to be basically made out of like floppy rubber gloves, but look at how big it is. Okay,
Yeah.
I am done squealy girly style on this one. I'm gonna move on to the next item in the news. We already talked about it. You can go on right now to diablo2.blizzard.com and sign up for the Tech Alpha. They are sending out alpha keys starting tomorrow morning for the Technical Alpha. It is only running this weekend. So if you want to go and watch somebody play Diablo 2, we are recording this on April the 8th, April the 9th through April the 11th. They are allowing the first round of Technical Alpha opt-ins to go. There is going to be a broader one that they announced sometime in the near future, but this is the first chance you get to play Diablo 2 in 4K. And I'm not going to play the demo. I'm not going to play the sizzle reel, but just this is the part that I wanted to show everybody. This is my life. This is how I used to play Diablo 2. This is how I've always played Diablo 2. And look at how much better that looks. Look at how good that barbarian looks. I'm in love all over again. Look at how good the fire actually looks like fire. Look at that fire. You know what that fire looks like? It looks like nothing. It looks like garbage. Look at the real fire. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Diablo 2. No, go watch twitch.tv/MrLlamaSC. Go watch his streams. If you're done with me already, if you're done with Adam already, if you want to disappoint us greatly, go and watch Mr. Llama. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. If not, come back. Come and hang out with us. We're cool too. Maybe not as cool as Llama. He has a Diablo 2 rap.
Diablo 2, but you know.
Don't leave us to go and play Diablo 2. Hang out with us and talk about the news. Speaking of which, Redgrass is coming out with another wet palette.
Oh, I actually need to really get me one of them.
So I backed the first Kickstarter. You guys can see, well, not right now, but you guys can normally see it. I've got an orange one that looks very similar to what is on stream in front of us on screen. Boy, when I backed this, they said no papers, reusable membrane, revolutionary design, lightweight, watertight, blah, 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 blah. What they've got going on right now on their Kickstarter is... I clicked away from it. It is making all the same promises. And there is a part of me that is like, yeah, this time I'll believe them. And there is a part of me that is like, no, do not do that. They lied to you last time. But they are actually demonstrating this time the actual membrane actually working and that you can reuse it and wash it out. And they've given it to a bunch of artists already. So cool. Hopefully it is actually working this time. But there's a little part of me that is like, just if you want one, go and buy one now. Don't wait for this new thing to come out. Just go and buy the currently available one. Just go with the flow. Go grab one from Redgrass. They're great the way they are. Don't wait for them to like go to Kickstarter. But if you want, Kickstarter starts sometime upcoming in May. You can go. We've got a link in the description. You can go and see when that Kickstarter is going to go live. You can get notified so that you can get in on one of the early deals because they seem to almost always have early deals on this stuff. Moving right along, Adam, do you know what the Golden Demon is?
I do know what the Golden Demon is.
Do you care to explain it to us?
I'm just going to check the link real quick because I might be thinking of it. No, this is the Golden Demon I'm thinking of.
So the Golden Demon is a painting competition. This is an annual paint competition at which they award the Slayer Sword. You also get Golden Demons. This has been throughout all of the mini painting hobby since like the early 80s, I guess. This has been how GW has given away their award for the best painted minis from all across the land. And they took all of the photography that they'd had throughout the years and they decided, let's go and find all of those minis that have won awards from us, all those artists, all those minis. and let's go and photograph as much of them or as many of them as we can and retake those photos. So like you can see here, this is David Soper, who's still in the hobby, surprisingly. This is David Soper's 1988 Golden Demon winning entry for the Elder Warrior, which it's quaint. I want a time machine just so I can go back and beat them all at mini painting. But like that is 2019 Maxime Pinot's incredible Dankhold Trogoth. And they've got stuff all the way in between. So this is another Kickstarter. This is one that I backed a while back, a couple of weeks ago. And it is just a lot of photography. So if you're in any way interested in the hobby, this is a great place that you can just go through and look at a lot of what is most beautiful about our hobby. Adam, can you remember any Golden Demon winners that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, there's only one that really sticks out in my mind. I saw it in an old White Dwarf magazine right around the time I got into the hobby, so we're talking like 14 years ago. But a guy had built an 18-inch tall Corn Berserker Space Marine of the World Eaters chapter with light up glowy eyes.
Yep. I know exactly which one you're talking about. I don't remember who the modeler on it is, but oh man,
Can't
is it
remember,
cool.
I can't remember who he was, but like he won painting and like best painted mini and also like best like full like best customized mini, and everything he used, everything was some sort of Games Workshop product or made entirely of green stuff.
Yep, that is one of the rules that I am learning that I am going to hate, especially when it comes to building the board, is that everything has to be GW products. Speaking of GW products, I oh boy, there are trolls out there or online campers or whatever. Cursed City came out this weekend, or sorry, it didn't even come out this weekend. It went up for pre-order last Saturday, and it was gone 13 minutes after it went live in Canada. 13 minutes. I didn't get one, and I am so sad. Moving right along. I'm not going to dwell on it. I really do like the idea of Cursed City. I liked, so there was one that came out before this called Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. That was the launch of Age of Sigmar. And as we head imminently towards Age of Sigmar V3, which they haven't actually announced yet, but pretty much everybody in the hobby has guessed is coming out sometime in 2021. This seemed like a good launch product that was probably going to go along with it, but we can debate that at another day. This is my favorite launch in the mini world this week. I cannot tell you. I may not be excited about these ones because they are giant, but I am excited for a different reason. Adam, did you see this go up on Warhammer Community this week?
No, I didn't. I missed it because when I got the notification, I was at work and I was on my break, and I just kind of swiped past and didn't look at it.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Sorry, I keep clicking away because I'm ignorant. But so these are the second and third demon hunters we've seen. So these right now are being announced as witch hunters or vampire hunters, I think is what the guy was in Warhammer Quest. But this is a lot of witch / vampire hunters that we've seen recently. And with the recent announcement of the new vampires from Games Workshop, I'm pretty excited. For right now, they're saying that they can be played as a part of the Cities of Sigmar, which neat. But I would love to see an actual witch / vampire / monster hunter style army come about, because that is my speed. That would be my kind of jam.
Yeah, I am just taking a quick peruse through the Cursed City collection box,
Yep.
and oh man, do I really like the new Skeleton Warriors.
Oh yeah.
So much. They
As a
are
dude
so
who
nice.
plays Necromancer in literally every game I can play a Necromancer in, having more Skelebros around is always
This
cool.
is true.
But I don't want to play skeletons in a tabletop game. Like I don't want to play. If I was to do a Cities of Sigmar or an Age of Sigmar army, it probably wouldn't be skeletons, because skeletons, I don't know. It doesn't really tickle my fancy. Like, even I've got a Nagash around here somewhere that I will finish someday, but like, I don't want to play death. I really, first of all, I like this model because old man face is great. Uh, but yeah, that's what I had for the news this week. I know I will be amending the comments. This particular link to Galen Van Denst and his daughter, which is Dorelia Van Denst. Uh, I'll include that in the description afterwards. If you look at it in the description down below, we've got all the news already in the comments in the description of the video. If you guys happen to see any news that you guys think that we should be covering on the channel, go ahead. You can send it off to choiceminis@gmail.com and we'll feature you in the news. Let's get back to painting.
You know what? If I had to pick an Age of Sigmar army, I know I've been kind of going on this trope a little bit, but I really like. Well, it's hard because like I really like the orks or however you pronounce the Sigmar orc name.
Are you talking about the Iron Jaws? Like the guys who are in giant armor?
Yeah, those guys are sweet.
Man, that Mega Boss. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Ye Olde Mega Boss. We have lost my palette cam here. That's
But
okay.
I am also a really big fan of the new Chaos Warriors that they've released in Sigmar, mostly because they're not all the same mini with the exact same pose, which whoever has played Old Hammer and played Chaos, that's what your Chaos Warriors were. They were all the same pose. You literally it was elbows tucked in by the side. You glued on a glove with either a sword or an axe or a spear and a shield or an axe in the other hand, and that was it. But their new, um, the new Chaos Warriors. I can't remember what set they're in. I can check that out really quick
Are you
here, but
talking
they
about like there is a huge number of them because there's all the slaves to darkness, right? So that is both the warriors as well as the new mounted guys. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff
that'd
that
be
Chaos got.
the Chaos Knights and the Chaos Warriors. I'm just you know
Hey, that's
weaving
totally
my
fine.
way through the old GW
Ye Olde
websites.
GW website. I
Yes.
am stuck because there's a huge part of me that wants to make a Cities of Sigmar army, both so that I don't get bored, so that I can choose like 42 different factions and just sort of glue them together. I can have some elves, I can have some Sigmarines, I can have some, some of the dwarfs that aren't called dwarfs that are the Longbeards, and some of the new dwarfs, the fiery dwarfs. Hey, Sean, how's it going, man? Yeah, we could have all that stuff kind of like mixed and mashed into one. That would be great, actually. And I can still use my favorite model in Age of Sigmar that I know it's going to go away someday and I'm going to be sad, but the dwarf gyrocopter is ridiculous in every way imaginable, and I love it. And there is no good reason for me to love it. It is for somebody who's like, this fantasy mini has too big of a gun and it wouldn't make his crate flare out like that. Uh, yeah, yeah, it's still fine. Yeah, I love that helicopter for no good reason. It's the same reason why I like the orc bomber way more than I possibly like, way more than I probably should. We'll put it that way.
That is fair, and Sean actually is correct in the comments. He and I did rock the old Chaos Warrior minis really well.
I mean, how many times did they re-release? They've been two editions of Slambo, and Slambo was the original Chaos Knight from what's it called? Hero Quest. So they're all in that same monopose, right?
That's essentially the exact mini.
Yeah.
Though that's them.
Oh, I know. But they do have like the Slaves to Darkness. If you look at the Slaves to Darkness starter, they
Yeah.
have got all sorts of upgrades since then.
Yeah, I'm just opening up the Chaos Warrior Regiment. The Chaos Warrior Regiment is actually the ones I'm talking about. They are the old hammer monopose ones. You glue like the back of the torso and the front of the torso together, and you pick kind of what either weapon, like two weapons or a shield and a weapon. And of course, now that I'm talking about it and looking for it, I can't find the new updated minis, but I think I'm actually looking in the wrong spot because I don't think they were actually released for um
Sigmar?
Yeah, they're for Sigmar, but they're for one of like the mini like the offshoot games.
Oh, are you talking about like in Underworlds? Just so you guys are aware, I'm now filling up my brush with the airbrush again. I'm just going now with Eclipse Gray, which is our like this is our mid-tone that I'm going to be using for these models, and I'm going to mix this one to be slightly thicker than what we were using before. So whereas before we were being pretty subtle, this is really where I'm going to start laying down base coats. We'll go in and reestablish some of that color shifting that we did, like with the some more of the color interest on the highlights and the lowlights afterwards, but now we're going to start blocking in a little bit bigger and bolder color. So again, I'm just testing it on my wrist because there's no more convenient surface. So let's just get into it. Do you find the models in Underworld? Because I have many feelings about Underworld. Most of them are happy. I love small skirmish games, and Underworlds does an exceptional job of giving you diversity in models while still maintaining sort of good unit coherency. Like Garrick's Reavers, well, all the way through. I mean, I've painted a bunch of different sets of those models. Not that I've ever actually played at a game of Underworld. Like I've literally never played one, but um, I've painted. Let's see, Thunderix Profiteers. I've painted all of my skeletons that I use in when we're playing D&D. All of those skeletons, those are all from Underworld. I'm trying to think of what else I've painted. Oh, I painted the troll one, whose name I can't remember right now. I have painted, let's see, the orcs. The first set of orcs, not the latest series where they're using the brutes, but the first series where they were using just Du Bois, or whatever the equivalent to Du Bois is in the old world, or in Age of Sigmar, not even the old world. Wow. I apologize. The old world has died, except for it probably hasn't because GW said that it hasn't. So you guys can see I'm being pretty fast and loose right now. I'm sort of keeping big areas of highlight, but I am sort of now at this point in time really working more to establish. As I said, I'm working to establish sort of that base coat color as we go through. Do you find them?
I didn't find them on GW, so I just did a quick search, but I found them on uh, Reddit. Of course, it doesn't tell me what game they're for, but I'm looking at the new sculpts now, and hey, I'm seeing they are all like just different enough that I do really, really want them. Like they do still have the kind of classic like chaos swords and axes and mauls. The shields are updated. The heads are still very similar. There are a couple new updates for them. Sean, they actually, you might be right. I think they are from Warcry. I believe they are. Of course, the Games Workshop site's like, hey, we're just going to bunch it all together and have fun sorting it through it. Because I'm pretty sure they are a Warcry warband.
I mean, there are Warcry bands, but all of the like Warcry Chaos bands that came out were all sort of like thematic armies, right? Like there was the ones that all looked like birds. There was the ones that were all clearly into
Yeah.
snakes. Like they were born snake handlers and they'll die snake handlers, kind of a deal. That for those of you who don't know is a reference to Mo Sizlek on The Simpsons, because for one episode they decided that Mo's family were snake handlers because there is no consistent backstory for Mo, none whatsoever, never ever.
And even here on the Games Workshop site, they are still not listed as a warband.
I don't think that Chaos, like the Chaos Undivided, has a warband in Warcry. I hate to be that guy. I don't think that that's where you're looking for him. Um,
Yeah, I've
if I
I'll have
was
to
if I was to
find
venture a guess on this one, I would probably say most likely you're looking
oh, here we go.
for if you're looking for Chaos Warriors, you're looking at Chaos Undivided, which means that
Yeah,
you're
yeah, it is. The box I was looking for is actually the start collecting box for Age of Sigmar, Slaves to Darkness, and it is
I was
the
right.
new. the new knights, so you get the new 5 of the new knights, the Varangard or whatever.
Yep.
You get a Chaos Lord on a creepy albino dinosaur looking thing, and
They
then
all
like the
have
new
weird mounts now, man.
yeah,
Mounts have gotten serious business.
yeah, and then you get the 10 updated Chaos Warriors.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
I
what?
there is a large part of me that wants to go and pick up a start collecting box and just work my way real quickly through a start collecting box. But I haven't yet because I don't know. I'm picky. I have real thoughts and feelings about models, obviously. So it's one of those things that my thoughts and feelings on on those models is I want I know who I am as a painter. I want to be in love with the sculpt before I get involved with it. And if I'm in love with the sculpt, I'm gonna want to spend forever dealing with it and all the rest of it. So, but I think as a challenge for myself, I am gonna pick up one of those start collecting boxes or some sort of smaller faction box and just go for it. Just give it a paint. Just try and get through it as quickly as possible and just sort of be happy with whatever comes by. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the start collecting Slaves to Darkness. Now that I know what it is and I could actually find it on there. Um, Odd that they don't actually sell the new updated Chaos Warriors as an individual pack yet. It's still just the old Chaos Warrior regiment from Oldhammer. So the only way to get the new updated Chaos Warriors or Chaos Undivided Warriors is to buy the start collecting box, which is 115 Canadian. But you're getting like 16 models, and 6 of them are mounted and fairly large.
Hey, that's actually not a bad. I don't think that that's a bad deal.
No, this one is going on my list, but I think my first model purchase when I decide to purchase models again will be definitely Machine and Krieger in 15 millimeter,
That's
especially because the rules are free.
that is fair, and I salute you for sticking to your guns on that one. I'm a sucker because every time Games Workshop is like, "Hey, there's this new slightly different model," I'm like, maybe I want that slightly different model. Vampires, you say? An army I would never consider painting on a regular day. Perhaps I want to paint vampires because there are new ones? The answer is I don't, but I'm gullible when it comes to that sort of marketing, and I'm like, ooh, new models. Perhaps I don't have enough models already and need to paint some differenter ones. The answer is I have enough models already and I don't need to paint different ones. But
That answer is wrong because there's you never have enough models ever.
that's absolutely untrue. I am one of those people that keeps the unusually small pile of shame. I have outside of these two war bands, I have bits like that I use obviously conversion bits and whatnot. I have a box of intercessors around, like just Primaris intercessors, because of course I do. I don't. I have bits for some of the conversions and stuff that we're doing as we get it more and more into uh, uh, Project Neverfallen, and that's it. I literally have I have two Reaper models that are unpainted. That is my entire stack of shame.
Oh
I'm not
man, I have
bragging. I am just saying that is what I am comfortable with as having a pile of shame. That is as big as a pile of shame as I am comfortable with.
my stack of shame is near endless at the moment.
That's fair.
Uh, I I do have like Ziploc freezer bags full of bits though that
Uh,
I've collected over the years.
that is something that I am definitely missing out on. Just because of the way I paint, I tend to buy a model so that I can paint a model, and then when there are bits left over, I kind of take care of it. But like, I don't have, other than the Necrons, I really don't have an army. And yes, I have an Indominus box of Necrons. That is the closest I have to an army, and it is well. Sorry, it's not an Indominus box of Necrons. It's two Indominus boxes of Necrons, and that is as close as I've ever gotten to an army.
Um, yeah, actually, Sean and I collectively together built up quite a large army of space wolves.
That's fair. Sean had a
Um,
question in chat. What mini?
uh, I don't know. I need a little bit more information on what mini. I have hundreds of minis, hundreds.
Oh, I was just so he said, man, they've gotten a boy better with prices, eh? It sort of depends where you're looking. Some stuff has gotten way better with pricing from Games Workshop. I think it has gotten way better since I've gotten in the hobby as far as some of the pricing on stuff. There is some stuff that is just an egregious ripoff. Um, I'm going to go on a complainy Necron tangent here. Um, I like the Necrons. I really do. They replaced my Necrons. Let's see. They replaced the what's it called? The big like not a Borg cube thing that's not quite the Tesseract. The one that's smaller than that.
Oh, the
Obelisk? Is it an obelisk?
no, it's not the obelisk. I know the floaty pyramid covered in guns.
Sean, help us. The floaty pyramid covered in guns. What's it called? At any rate, that thing went from being
Monolith.
an
The
80
Necron
monolith.
monolith.
Thank you. It went from being an $80 model to $200. I think it is today, Adam.
Yep, and it is the exact same model.
It's not the exact same model. They did do actually. It looks super cool. The new version of it looks way cooler. They did update it during Indominus, like during the Indominus intro, but like okay.
Must have missed that then. I did not see a release of the new monolith.
The one that's online right now is the new one. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. My camera is just being my second camera here is just being. It's all right. We're not using it so much right now, but we will be getting there in a moment, and I will be figuring out why it is constantly cutting out. Um, to bring it
Just
back
a
to what
little,
I'm doing with modeling right now, I am right now. I'm just going through and reinforcing some of my midtone. So in places that aren't deep shadow yet, but also aren't particularly in the light, I'm coming through with our midtone here. I'm being a little bit more aggressive with it right now, knowing that I still am going to come back with both of those other colors. But I am also starting, you can see, especially with this guy, I'm starting to frame the places that I want the light to go. So if the light were coming in like this, like if he was staring into some sort of light cannon, where would light fall across the model? I want it to be brightest at the top and then gradually gradate down from there. But I also want to make sure that I have a really strong midtone so that it doesn't look like it's coming out of nowhere. But to finish my complaining thought about GW's pricing, there are some things that are great deals. Specifically, like start collecting boxes, great deals. A lot of this stuff when they launch either new products, so like this Curse City stuff that just came out last week, great deal. But once it comes into individual models, I'm sorry, intercessors went from being, let's see, firstborns for a box of firstborn tactical marines, you were looking at like $50 for 10 of them, and now for intercessors it's $75, which fine. There's a lot of work that goes into sculpting models. Like I'm not blaming them necessarily for that, but like that is an expensive hobby and it just keeps getting worse. And if you don't get in on some of these start collecting things, like if you're not in on this stuff when it first goes live, and especially with the last couple, like Indominus had problems with pre-orders. That's why they've reissued the pre-order like 2 days later. Curse City, it was gone in 13 minutes in Canada. I don't know how long it took the rest of the world, but 13 minutes is not enough time for like a regular human being to be able to interact with that sort of thing. So just I don't know. It's disappointing when you can't get that stuff that's on sale for cheap. Yes,
oh,
we got it. Thank you, Sean.
yeah, Sean, the one I'm going to buy is the one I want to buy from Games Workshop is the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Slave to Darkness start collecting box. Um, the other thing I mentioned was something that was mentioned on Tuesday in the news segment about machining Krieger in 15 millimeter. But we can, if anyone has more questions about that, we can definitely check those out and maybe on next week on Tuesday when we get back more into the sci-fi stuff, Steve and I can talk a little bit
Yeah, we can
about that.
definitely, because MAK is a universe that I really love. I know Adam,
Yes.
you love it as well, and
Oh, so much.
uh, it is a weird universe of models, and a 15 millimeter scale game of them is, uh, I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on army composition and stuff. Like, I'm not huge into painting full armies of things, but a couple of them would be pretty cool.
Yeah, from what I understand of the game and like the rules, um,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
it
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 is not
it
meant to
goes from
be a
skirmish.
huge model count. I know that. So
Yeah, it goes from like skirmish scale games, so a couple squads against a couple squads, to like full scale army groups on army groups. Sean would like to know if you are using the red grass paint handle, Steve.
I am. I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. I am not just a shield for Redgrass. It just so happens that I had, I think I gave them to you actually, Adam. I had a set of the GW painting handles. They're nice. I would argue in some ways they may be nicer than these ones, but the big thing is being able to take the model on and off really easily. So, what Sean is asking about, if other people are following along, uh, painting handle is just a way so I can hold the model without actually touching the model with my greasy gamer hands. Um, but the big thing with the red grass one is I can take the actual tops of the models off, or the top of this thing off, so I can just spin on a new one and keep going. These are just glued on, well, not even glued on. They are just joined on with their substitute for blue tack. I don't have great luck with this stuff. It tends to stick in places that are inconvenient too much of the time for me to trust it. So it basically gets to do this job, and then I will be gloving up and trying not to touch the model as much as possible after this. I Even with these guys, I'm going to paint in subassemblies, so I'll take these models apart and stuff. And I do not trust. So if we look at our friend here, uh, so this is our friend, the test model. You can see even on here, there are tiny little bits of like that orange stuff, and they're all over the model because I stuck it on to that orange, their replacement for the green stuff, once, and it is forevermore stuck to our mini. And I keep finding more and more places where it is stuck to it, and I hate it. So these guys are fine for while I'm doing basing, or while I'm trying to keep them on these just test stands, basically, like on their test bases. It won't stick around for that long because it drives me insane. So I probably won't be using them that much. So yes, I do use the red grass painting handles. No, I wouldn't recommend them, but that's mostly on me. I hate blue stuff this much. There are better handles out there. Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
Sean, we
like
will cover MAK a little bit more when we come back to it next week. I know we're on about a 30-second or so delay to YouTube. Just that's how much YouTube trusts us right now. So we'll work with it. We'll go with it. I'm going to restart our music because it's feeling lonely in here. So you guys can see I'm now into the place where I sort of have a base coat built out. Um, you can start to see where I am favoring light on this model. And if we go back to our test orc, you're like, dude, there is so much more light on our test orc than there is on our actual finished orc, and you are absolutely correct. So what we're gonna keep doing, like the entire process with our test orc and our orcs right now, is to get the majority of our pieces rendering out light and shadow better, like our matte orc. And then we're going to go through and refine it even further and get it to glossy honk and or tonk. Adam, do you want to tell the tale of honk and or tonk?
oh boy, would I ever. Potentially two of my favorite D&D characters of all time. Um, they were so awesome that even after we didn't, even after the one shot we used them in, they did make it into our main campaign. But the full story of Honk and Tonk, is that they are twin half-orc brothers who believe that
Together we are one
together,
orc.
and also a full human, but we don't talk about that because that's not what they want. Honk and or Tonk, their names were very interchangeable. It kind of was funny for our DM when he looked at both of our character sheets and we both just had Honk/Tonk as the name for both characters. Because these are characters that Steve and I created together just to play in a one-shot to help kind of introduce two of our friends' new characters into the campaign a little bit easier. And they discovered that dimensional portals do taste good, but you probably shouldn't lick them because you will then disappear. And then they made a later on in the campaign, they did show up again in the first level of hell around the Brass Citadel, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
And they were much higher level characters at that point than us. Which is fair. I mean, they are amazing.
So
And
Honk
then
and
they
or
were-
Tonk, aside from just being twins and brothers and half orcs, were also a barbarian and a sorcerer. And they weren't sure which one of them was which, but one of them was real spooky with sneaky magic powers. And the other was just a crazy rage factory. And even Honk and Tonk weren't sure which one of them was which.
Yep, because they also couldn't agree on whose name was which either. I see. They did unfortunately in that campaign die.
Did they though?
Which, well, I guess technically no, because they did on a D&D camping trip reappear, but not just reappear, but reappear in the saddest, most heartbreaking way possible, where they had finally achieved their dream. They became a full orc, but also a full human. So Honk and or Tonk became a full orc, and Tonk and or Honk became a full human. And it was quite sad.
Sometimes you fly too close to the sun, man.
That is true. I can't quite remember if they survived or if I do remember we helped them.
I remember us helping them too. I honestly couldn't tell you. Maybe, I don't know, JP was on the last stream. JP, if you're in chat and can remember more of the end of Honk and or Tonk, because you were the DM at the time, go ahead and throw it up in chat. If you want to hide in the background, that's cool too. I see you. Not everybody has to be out front. I'll remind everybody, now is a great time to subscribe to the channel. You can do that by clicking the little subscribe button up at the top on YouTube. If you are on a computer, if you are on mobile device, just click anywhere on the screen and then click subscribe. Hit the stupid little bell thing so that you get to be notified every time we go live. We stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you happen to have nerdy friends who are like us, or lie to other friends who aren't your nerdy friends and tell them that this is the greatest thing you've ever watched throughout all of time. Get them to come and hang out with us. I mean, it's more fun the more of us there are here. So if you want to share, like, comment, subscribe, we would love that sort of thing because it really helps the channel grow. We got to get to 100 people. If we get to 100 subscribers, I will be doing a giveaway. We will be giving away a bunch of swag for the channel. You can see, obviously, my paint wash station up here. With the all-seeing eye, you can also see the choiceminis eye over there. We've got t-shirts and whatnot. If you head off onto our website, choiceminis.ca or choiceminis.com, both of them head over to our homepage. You can check out our merch. You can check out merch for the Orkland Raidaz. But yeah, if you would share, if we can get to 100 people, I'll be doing a giveaway from the website. And we finally get youtube.com/choiceminis. That's right. We are racing to 100 so that we can get that before somebody else does. So it would be a huge help if you guys could let your friends and or family and or people that you hate but think would enjoy this hobby, just let them know so that we can start building the channel up. All right, shilling aside, how are we doing, Adam?
I think we're doing pretty good.
So again, I'm just using the colors that I got here. So this is actually a little bit of a combination of our mid-tone and that white sand that we used to do a little bit of the undershading on the base tone. and I'm just coming in real gentle. I'm using the actual angle of the model itself, as well as how I'm spraying with the brush. I'm using that to sort of dictate where light is landing on the model. Again, we're going to keep modulating this. Like, airbrush puts down such a thin amount of paint that I can keep going back and forth on it, and I'm not really worried about it clogging detail or anything on the model, but we're starting to use it to define broad shapes. Now, we'll go in again after we've sort of taken this step with the airbrush. We'll go in again and reestablish and refine these shapes that we're building right now. So this isn't the end or anything. This is just sort of a helpful beginning more than anything else. Oh boy. Adam, do you have an airbrush?
I do have an airbrush. We have the same airbrush.
Do we?
Or no, we have the same
We have the same
compressor.
don't we?
Yeah, because I bought the same airbrush kit you did, but you also bought a different airbrush for yours, where I did not.
Yeah.
And I kind of regret that, because the airbrush that it comes with is not good.
Hey, it's one of those things that, like any skill, I feel with mini painting, and really anything, you got to dedicate a lot of time into it for it to really become worthwhile. For years, I used my airbrush exclusively to knock primer out as fast as humanly possible, and then just sort of put it away, right? Like, I was like, okay, I know that I can get this far pretty quickly and with relatively decent results. I don't want to push my chances, right? Like, because there is just too much for me to screw up, and I'm not going to say by any means that I am good with an airbrush. I watch actual airbrush heroes. If you ever want to go and watch a guy who is the master of the airbrush, his name is Angel Heraldez. He is a Spanish YouTuber. You can find him just at Angel Heraldez. He's the guy who paints all of the what's their name? They're sort of cyberpunky. It's a small squad combat game. We used them for when we were playing the Cyberpunk before we actually got the Cyberpunk Red.
Infinity.
There we go. He is not any longer, but he was the in-house painter for Infinity, and he is now a YouTuber. And he has airbrush skills that make me incredibly envious of the amount of skill that he can put out and how quick he is with it. But it's also a lifetime of practice, in his own words. I mean, he's been painting since he was like 8, and decided really early on that he wanted to pick up airbrushing as a skill, and has just been rolling with it ever since then. For you guys, for everybody joining us or watching us on stream, I am putting a little bit of extra light in a couple places on the model. So yes, I am sort of keeping to a pattern of light falling across the model that I want, but then I'll go through and take just an extra second. So you can see on this guy, I shot a little bit of this mid-gray color or this lighter gray color. I just shot it on his face because I want to keep some highlight color on the face as well. Just faces are a focal point of every model, and it's one of those things that a little bit of extra help in the base coating is not going to hurt our model. Having a brighter base coat, I have watched enough YouTube and done this enough myself. You can, no matter what color of base coat you put down on your model, so whether you're priming it in whatever color, no matter how many other coats of paint you put over top of it, and it can be, in the case like of some of the stuff that I've really tried to take to a very high level, it can be hundreds of thin coats of paint later, and you can still see the base, like whatever the prime color was. This is why I use pretty neutral colors when I'm priming, and why I use purple on this guy as our gap fill color, because it's immediately apparent. That magenta color that I sprayed on the model, or not sprayed on, that I brushed on the model, that I used an oil wash on the model for, it sticks out like a sore thumb. I am partially colorblind, and it is one of the colors I can see from the moon. So that magenta color is there specifically to warn Steve that hey, you didn't actually paint this area. So it's sort of a warning for me. So it serves a dual purpose. It is partially it's a good way for me to be able to see the crevices of the model when I'm identifying these shapes and stuff, but it's also it's also a great one for me to be able to see parts that I have missed while painting the model, which happens even hundreds of coats of paint later. And by hundreds, I mean like literally hundreds of coats of paint later. There are still parts of these models that I can miss. I've done it before on models, and this is my way of warning myself against that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I have definitely done that myself. Where I'm like, oh, it's totally done. Turn the model over. I missed a complete section of the mini somehow.
Oh yeah, and like parts where I'll tell myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get that in a bit. Like I'll come back to that in a moment. And then like 3 days later, I'm coming back to the model because life gets in the way, right? So 3 days later, I'm coming back to the model, and I'm like, yeah, I totally got that part. Not even for a second doubting myself and thinking like, maybe I didn't actually get that part. And then like even poring over the model day after day, because there are plenty of models where I put 30, 40, 50 hours into them. Poring over those models day after day, you never maybe catch the light in the right way, or it just never comes up because you're so focused on whatever part of it that you sat down to do today. And I'm not saying that spending that much time on a model is necessary or a good idea, but I have sat down and put 40 or 50 hours into a model and definitely missed parts. So that's why I make them magenta, so it's much harder for me to do that.
Yeah, I think the most I've actually put into a model for paint wise, I think like 18 hours. For me, it was my Drayden from Buble the Third.
I can go grab Nagash. He's got about 40 or so hours into him right now, and he is a solid. I want to say a solid third of him is mediocre. And Nagash, for those of you who don't know, the Dark Lord Nagash ended the old world in Warhammer Fantasy, but he is also a giant model. So this is he would be like a 40-foot tall skeleton in real life. Like, he is a giant demi-lich. I don't think I could fit him on camera under the current setup. Like, I'd have to back zoom off for him to be able to fit in here in this area. But he is a giant model, and
I have seen this model in person. He is quite large.
Yeah, he is both large and very detailed because it was really in the time of Games Workshop modelers where they were like, oh man, you mean we can just throw even more stuff onto all these models? And they were just going ham on making sure that every model had the most amount of details it possibly could on it, and he's surrounded by this crazy swirling base of energy, and like, he's a really cool model, like absolutely gorgeous, but like he is information overload in just such a awesome and phenomenal way. But like, oh man, I don't know if I will ever actually finish painting him. He might be my white whale. You can see on the model, so I've got plenty of pieces where you can see like there are large cracks and stuff on the model. There are gaps and stuff that aren't filled. That's fine. These models are, I'm taking these to display quality. So I am priming and base coating these all together so that I have a consistent look to them. As I break these models back apart and paint little pieces of them in an assembly line sort of fashion, yeah, especially with these like first few steps of getting detail into the model, yeah, this I don't care that there's a gap there. That gap there is just a gap that is there. We will keep working on it and keep on going and fill those gaps as the time comes. So again, just doing a little more and reinforcing a color. Go ahead, Adam.
Actually, while we were talking, I did pull off one of my favorite Old Hammer miniature.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Who also happens to be an orc.
Oh, okay.
It is Grimgore Ironhide, the Herald of Gork and Mork.
So why is he your favorite model, Adam?
Well, I think it was it was a story I read actually in a White Dwarf magazine that happened to be It was right around when they had Valen or whatever, the like Sigmar Reborn character, um, and Archon.
Oh, Archaon.
Yes, and they were fighting,
Yep.
and Valen lost. That is actually canon. That was one of the neat things about Oldhammer was that they used their big game day battles to actually help define where the universe went.
You mean the fall of Cadia? Are you talking about the fall of Cadia?
I am not talking about the fall of Cadia.
But
We all know
but
that
that
Cadia
happened.
fell. It did happen.
And it was decided by the results of people playing games because
Yeah.
Space Marines are garbage. As I paint 20 Space Marines on screen.
Yes. But in the story, so the armies of light, so humans, that'd be the Empire and the Bretons, and the Kislevites, and then elves and dwarves are the forces of light, versus the forces of chaos, which encompasses all four of the chaos gods.
And Archaon, the champion of Chaos Undivided.
That is true. So during this giant, super world-destroying battle, Archaon and Valen, and please, if I'm saying Valen, I never actually. Drayden Crumbuble the Third was actually based off of the Valen mini.
Nice.
I just took off the great hammer and gave him a great sword instead, and that was it actually. Yeah. But in the way it went is that the forces of light and the forces of chaos were just butchering each other, and eventually, the leaders of both armies, Valen and Archaon, or however you pronounce his name, met in single combat in the center of the field.
Of course.
Now, cue the orcs. The unending green tide of the Wog. And for all those not in the know, that is actually just Orcish for war. But so Grimgor and his personal bodyguard of the largest, meanest, and most savage black orcs around slaughtered their way through both armies. They did not care which side you were fighting for. They were just there for a good old fight. Which is one of the reasons I really like orcs is because they don't care who you are or what you believe in. They're just gonna fight you anyway.
Seems reasonable.
So Archaon struck down Valen. Valen was whisked away, and I think he died. I'm not sure.
Probably. Sounds like something that would happen towards the end of the times.
So cue Grimgor then challenging Archaon to personal combat to decide, in Grimgor's word, who is the best. And from what I understand, like the actual game, it was very, very one-sided in favor of Grimgor. Like, I do know I think it was 8th or 9th edition of Oldhammer, whatever the last edition was, he was absolute powerhouse. Especially when combined with his Black Orc bodyguards, where you'd be like, oh, cool, that's your big hero mini. Now he's dead. You barely touched Grimgor. So in the end, Grimgor does beat Archaon savagely and with great joy, because he's also the herald. He's not only the herald of Gorkamork, but he has, I think it is Mork's eye in place of his lost eye. So he's also cunningly brutal and the most brutally cunning orc ever to set foot in the old world. And after he had beaten the Grandmaster of all Chaosy Chaosness in personal combat and essentially saved the old world from being run by chaos. No, he did not. He saved it briefly before Nagash was like, I'm just gonna hit the reset button. But before that happened,
a reset button. He literally continue along with the story.
Yes. So like before the whole Age of Sigmar, the old world kind of happened or whatever. Grimgor inadvertently saved the world by defeating the greatest champion of chaos that was ever around and broke the hordes of chaos. And then promptly left the field because he felt no one else was so excited with the last statement. Now no one could say that Grimgore's not. And that was it. And they retired back to the World Edge Mountains. I'm pretty sure they slaughtered their way back to the World Edge Mountains because
Wouldn't surprise me.
orcs
Sounds like
being
the
orcs.
Orky way.
Right, and that was also right around when they came out with the full pewter updated version of Grimgore, I believe. Well, he released him because he was unavailable for a bit. And that's around the time I got mine. Though I do believe my Grimgore actually came from a Kijiji purchase that Sean and I went in on, and there was we got like a bag of bits with some other, and there was 2 complete Grimgores in there. So we each got one.
Hey, that sounds awesome. Um, I have a slightly different answer to this question of what my favorite model is, and I feel bad about it because there is no lore reason for it. I gotta be honest with everybody who's watching the stream. Every time I read lore, I'm like, well, that's silly. which probably makes me a bad person because I don't know. I feel like it does, but it's one of those things that my favorite model. Okay, there's 2. So in fantasy, my favorite model by far is actually the the Caharadon Arcanauts, or whatever they're called, the Sky Dwarves. They have a giant ship called I want to say it's a dreadnought, but it's probably not. Whatever their biggest ship is. I sound super knowledgeable right now. You can tell how much I'm into the lore of these things. But they have a giant boat that flies through the sky, and it reminds me so much of the Teddy Ruxpin skyship, except for if Teddy Ruxpin had been some sort of like Victorian era steampunk pilot dwarf. Yeah, it makes me happy in that way. So I really love that model for some reason. And then on the let's see, on the sci-fi side of it, and not, I'm going to stick with GW on this one too. Actually, there was sort of a debate in my mind, but I just settled it. So on that side of it, it is the new Void Dragon.
That
the Satan. Oh man, that model is. For those of you who haven't seen it, you can head over to GW and take a look. But that GW Satan Void Dragon model, or shard of the Void Dragon Satan, is, oh boy, chef's kiss. I definitely am into that model in a way that is maybe inappropriate. Also, and in a close third place, second place for me is actually the Hulk sculpt from. It's not Night Models. It is whoever took over the Marvel license, and I can't remember their name right now, and that's bothering me. They make Marvel Crisis Protocol. At any rate, that new Hulk, great. It is the best version of the Hulk I've ever seen put in plastic, so that is saying something. I feel like a lot of those stone and pewter models and stuff that of the Hulk have just done a really bad job, but that Hulk in particular is pretty cool. And then in third place is actually the new flayed ones from GW as well. You can tell there's a reason why I actually am willing to paint Necron models. I love them. They are not good at the game, but they are cool and easy and fun to paint. So that all lines up for me as being something that is totally worth doing. Easy, fun, cool. With these models, I put a lot of coats of paint, a very watery paint on them in the last couple of minutes. I know that they are very fragile right now, so I'm just sort of leaving them to hang out here for a few minutes. Adam, I think that right now would be a pretty decent time for us to just take a little intermission. We're going to let our models harden up a little bit. I'm going to come back. When we come back, we're going to be reinforcing some of the shadows. So you can see that we have now got some pretty light lights. You can see on our test model how much we've got to refine those shapes and stuff, but we've got some pretty nice highlights going across these models. We've got some dynamic lighting happening. They're all well lit. We'll come back, we'll put in some shadows, we'll really push that contrast on everything. and then we'll see where we're at for the night. So we will be back. If
We
you give
will
us a
have
vote-
a little bit of a audience participation segment when we get back.
Oh yeah. So hang out with us. When we come back, you will get to play. We will head towards the segment. It is an audience participation segment. I am so excited for this. I am so jazzed. Oh boy, Adam.
Wait, I have the funniest choice for it, and I am so excited.
All right, we will be back in a few minutes, guys. Give us 5 minutes here, and we will be back. Take care, everybody.
And we are back.
Hey everybody! All right, you probably guys saw I was doing a little messing around with the camera here as we were going. So, welcome back, everybody. I'm gonna do the thing where for the first time on stream, I'm actually come on, maybe if the palette cam actually comes back to life, we will be seeing our palette cam for the first time. Unfortunately, I'm having just the worst Wi-Fi issues today. This is not embarrassing, but there we go. We will be opening our palette here. So we're gonna actually put color on the model with a brush, like plebs. So you guys can see that I've already got some colors on the palette, and I'll go through, talk about a little bit what's on there. Not all of it is going to be used tonight, because the great thing about wet palettes is color stays viable for many days. So we're having a good time with that. Right now on the palette, so I just put down some of our, excuse me. I'll actually grab it and show you guys. That's my elbow. There you go. So I just put down our Eclipse Gray, which is our mid-tone. I've got a rather large puddle of black there that you can see, and I'm also going to put down a little bit of our Abyssal Blue, and I'm going to use this to tint some of our shadows as we get into refining a lot of other shapes on our model here. So I'm going to get into it with a fairly broad brush here and just start slapping paint to model. I'm not using my greatest brushes here. This is not the time for that sort of thing, so we're just still essentially working in base coats. So now's the time, and this is something I had talked about before. We want to make sure our paint is relatively clean, but we're also not looking for like glaze consistency. So we're still looking to get a fairly large amount of pigment on the model at a time. And this is something that I love scale 75 for. It really does take well to having both a lot of thin consistency but still keeping high pigmentation. So because it is a highly pigmented model, and because we are working on a lot of base coat colors that we've already sort of established, I can be pretty broad with these stripes, and then we're just going to work on refining those shapes over and over again. That really is the secret to mini painting. There are many guides on the internet. I won't espouse to know more than them, but like, this is how I like to paint. I like to put on big swatches of color and make it smaller. We're basically carving out shapes. Just making these volumes appear by using all the techniques in our book. So we'll talk a little bit more about technique as we keep going here. But Adam,
Yes.
how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I was actually thinking, like, when you were talking about like your kind of top minis.
Yo.
I didn't. There is an Old Hammer mini that I am a huge fan of, and it is the Old Empire Steam Tanks.
Right? And steam
Like-
tanks are one of those things that I'm not sure where it sits in the Warhammer universe anymore. I know that there are still steam tanks and there are still Bretonians, but I don't know how long they are for the new world. And they haven't had a model released at all in Age of Sigmar. Like, there has been literally no Bretonian models. And again, with the release or the tease or the announcement of those two new Witch Hunt days, it looks dimmer and dimmer for the Bretonians getting any sort of major update in Age of Sigmar.
That is true. Like the only Patronian minis I really liked were, the Green Knight and the Late Lake.
Fair enough.
The Green Knight is just because he is the ultimate eco warrior and will kill and defeat anything that besmirches his forests. And the Lady of the Lake is, well, the Lady of the Lake. I need not say more.
Like the Lady of the Lake of Arthurian legend, Lady of the Lake?
Let's call it the bastardized Game Workshop version of that.
Okay, cool. I'm in.
They were both like they were older minis. Like a lot of the Bretronian stuff is for when it was current in Old Hammer. I guess going off of a current thing, they were kind of like chaos for 40k, where they definitely got put by the sidelines a lot of times. Like, did not get a lot of newer updates or anything in later editions. Which I can kind of understand, because like the Patronians were, for all intents and purposes, like Arthurian myth Grail Knights. Like, there's an actual unit of Grail Knights.
Neat.
But I do, and I never played. Like, I've never played a game of Warhammer, so I don't really know. But I've heard very mixed reviews about the Patronians on the tabletop, where they either are, and this is a rare occurrence from what I heard, is that they were real good, like steamrolling, or which seems to be the majority of the time, kind of middle of the road, more losses than wins.
Hey, that happens, and not every army wins all the time. And I forgot about an entire faction. And I guess I should say that I do. I love me some dinosaurs, and part of loving dinosaurs is that I really love the Carnosaur. Oh, Sean, that's too bad that you're. It's Grimgor Ironhead, right? Is the one that you guys were talking about? It's too bad that he's missing
Grimgor
a hand.
Yeah, it's the hand that's holding. It's actually holding the severed head of an Empire Elector Count. So, he literally killed a dude. Actually, it isn't even canon. I can't remember which one he kills in the canon for Old Hammer, but he does kill one. And the cool thing about the Elector Counts is that they are all bearers of swords called Ruin Fangs, which are Mastercraft dwarven-made ruin, like great swords covered in magic runes. And they were kind of like, you know, like the R.A. Salvatore Drizzt books.
Yep.
Bruner's, like, when he makes Wolfgar's hammer, it's like he's never gonna make anything that good again.
Yep.
That's what the Rune Fangs are.
Neat.
They are the epitome of a dwarf craftsman's work. He made, like, I think half a dozen of them at once, and then never made any again. And they are only one unit in the Empire armies could take them, that being the Elector Counts. Not even generals could get them. Not even Karl Franz had one, but he also did just wield the Hammer of Sigmar. It's also is one of my favorite looking swords that Games Workshop has produced, mostly because it is so plain, aside from like a little ruin just above the hilt. And like other than that, it's very plain. I really enjoy it. I actually bought an Elector Count box purely just for that sword. And this was back when like the Elector Count was like $40 for one mini, so not unreasonable, because he did come with you could make him both a mounted and unmounted and on foot version of him from the same box, which was pretty cool.
I'm always more than a little jealous of Lord of the Rings players, because they still get that. Like when you buy Gandalf, Gandalf is Gandalf on foot as well as Gandalf mounted. So, just quickly while I'm scooching through the stuff with the brush, where I'm noticing, so you can see on this guy's little pad here, on whatever that is, thigh pad, whatever. I missed a mold line. And it is never too late to go back and correct mistakes like that. So what that is Games Workshop makes its models by injecting plastic into heated molds. So there is one side of the mold and another side of the mold, and then they inject plastic into the middle of it. And then when they pull those molds apart, there is always some amount of seepage that comes between those molds. And it's not really that big a deal. Like, if I'm honest, this is something that, like, yeah, one guy in 5 will actually comment about, but I want to go to competition with these models. Like I have a goal for myself to take these to armies on parade. So if I notice things like that, like mold lines, if I notice them while I'm painting them, there is only one answer, and that is that I need to get rid of it. So yeah, all I did was I just scraped it off with a knife. Painting over it right now. I will come back and probably touch that up a little bit more just as we go, just making sure that that is actually an area that is smoothed out and properly dealt with now. But you guys can also see I'm being really fast and loose with these coats of paint. Like I'm not agonizing where colors are going right now. I am trying to find, by the end of my base coating process, and this is my process, so you guys can take it with a grain of salt. At the end of my base coating process, I want to be able to hold this thing at arm's length and be able to identify every part of the model. So if I look at, again, we're going to go to our sample model here. If I hold this guy at arm's length, there's a couple things that I can do. I can see individual segments of this model, and if I can't do that at arm's length, then I'm not doing a good job of painting it. If I'm getting confusion over which parts are which, or I can't see that, this part of his armor is in front of this part of his armor from arm's length, so it's going to be real hard to do that on stream because cameras are zoomed in and whatnot. But if I can't do that from arm's length, then I've got a problem. And then after that, it is about once I've sort of got that as a base coat, that's where I come in and start refining shapes even more. So you can see on this guy's armor that he's got pitted armor. So I went through and made these divots and stuff like that. That is all a part of the process, right? We want to start off with being able to see individual segments of armor and parts of the model. We want to be able to identify the face and the teeth and all the rest of that from a good distance. And then as we get closer into the model, we want it to reveal more detail. So that's why I can be so fast and loose with this stuff as I'm starting to paint it. Like I don't have to agonize over each placement of each brush stroke. Right now we're making big volumes make sense. We'll come through and add detail way on down, well, not way on down the road, but down the road a ways. Like and I encourage everybody, like anybody who's painting a model, with these first few base coats, especially while I don't have anything else that's painted, like I don't have skin painted, I don't have any other part of this model that has any real color on it at all yet, other than some base coats, just be fast with it. Get paint on the model, start making progress, start seeing shapes develop in the model itself, and let the model be painted, and then start refining stuff. Don't agonize over placement and neatness until you need to. Be wild and bold with it, and then come back and refine shape afterwards. Like refine your paint job afterwards, and stop wherever you're happy with it. Don't keep going. Like at some point, you have to say enough is enough. Anyway, I think, are you guys talking about Grimgore in chat?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Sean is reference to. If I want to paint and build it, it might be Grimgore, it might be a steam tank, or it could be the Green Knight.
Ooh, I like the idea of the Green Knight. I actually
Yeah,
have.
I like, and like the fact is, like, he's the steam tank. Yes, Sean, I would love to build and paint your steam tank because I love that mini. Not only because like I loved the Empire's like weird level of technology where they had like steam tanks, um, and like to the
Also
point where
wizards.
also wizards and black powder guns, but also crossbow and bow armed units.
Yep. The
It was
pistoliers
it
and fusiliers, but also
yes,
just big,
and handgunners.
yeah, and handgunners and big mess off, whatever that wizard model that I've seen forever. The one that looks like a giant ocularium or whatever they want to call it on a cart that is self propelled. I don't even know what that thing is called. It's just got a wizard with a bunch of planets surrounding him,
Yeah,
being all magical and
he's
whatnot.
a celestial wizard,
There you
is
go.
what they call him. I know which model you're talking about. I can't picture it though. Um, and I was just thinking like the Green Knight, because essentially like what he is a paladin. If we're going off D&D,
Hmm.
off 5e because it's the one I have the most experience with. So, um, he would be a paladin, Oath of the Ancients.
Neat. I've never actually played an Oath of the Ancients Paladin. At least well, they only exist in 5e, but I have not played one in 5th edition. I have played a Vengeance Paladin,
D&D Batman.
D&D Batman, and let's see. I think that's all I've played for Paladins.
Yeah, and I'm trying out the Oath of Conquest Paladin right now,
Yeah,
and
you've had that character for a while.
oh yeah, he's literally good. I do need to. I didn't level him up quite the way I should have the last level up we had because I took a feat instead because I wanted to represent kind of how broken my character is becoming, having watched his best friend be murdered, and then
He
discovering
wasn't
his.
murdered. He was eaten by an enormous bird.
No, 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 no. That wasn't his best friend. His best friend was Dakin,
Oh,
the the the,
he
the
wasn't
cleric who
murdered.
was
He was neglected to death on the ship of, or on the prow of a ship.
not my fault.
Just none of us helped him while he was in death saves. I think I was also dead at that point in time. So
Um. Yeah, you were down. That was your pirate guy.
Dirk Yan.
Um. Yeah. Dirk. No, sorry. Jerk Dan.
Dirk
Jerk
Yan.
Dan.
Dirk Yan.
Um. I think the big kicker that killed Dakin was the fact that Dan rolled 2 1s.
Yeah, that also doesn't help when you're in death saves and just keep rolling ones. So
Um. But yeah, the Vengeance Paladin really good. Definitely need a very very high charisma score to make their abilities kind of work a little bit better. Also, not just be fighting a lot of undead all the time like we have been, where the abilities don't really work because they're undead, so they can't be scared of the 8 foot tall guy with horns on his head.
you're talking about your conquest paladin.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, you just said vengeance paladin, and I was like, no, my
Oh yes,
vengeance
Vengeance
paladin worked
Paladin.
just fine.
Yeah, your
It's
Vengeance
incredible.
Paladin worked really fine until we forced him into a gladiator match that he didn't want to be in, and then he promptly died.
Listen, none of my characters have ever died because I've gotten bored of playing them. That's not definitely a thing I have definitely done on many occasions. I don't know what you're talking about. Impossible. Um, so if you guys are following along with what I'm painting on stream, you guys can see that I'm just slowly sort of creeping up, making areas of extreme light smaller. I'm trying to get some of the volumes and stuff worked out in my while I'm doing this. I'm not being precise. I am just trying to get paint on model. We will refine shapes and stuff as we have more and more of the model painted. Right now for base coats, again, I'm just trying to get like a good idea of where light and stuff is going to be on this guy. And you can see that I am now working into thinnish glazes to just sort of refine some of these shapes. Again, this is just sort of a first step, and we're working more and more of our blue color into this, and more of that black color. Just as I want to cool down these shadows, and I want these shadows to be a very different tone than the top of the model. That also helps to create some of the contrast and stuff, right? So where we have a light source, I want it to be quite a bit lighter, but I also am changing the hue of the actual color that's going down. So that's why we're using abyssal blue instead of just using something like a straight black or like a neutral gray. So this eclipse gray is also a cool-ish gray. If I was to say anything, it's probably closer to a green gray than it is to like a very dark green gray. Um, Whereas I could be using something like, if we were to put this into the GW range of stuff, um, I'm not just using a banded black, right? Or I'm not just in scale color case. I'm not using black 00. I am not there yet with these colors because I need to be able to create more light and shadow than what uh, not necessarily than what those can produce. Those blacks obviously can become very, very black. You can see on this guy, those blacks are decently black colors. If you look at this is black 2 or black too, except for it's covered over in gloss. You can see how dark that black looks. Um, you can see by
Steve,
compare.
apparently people are having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Oh, well then I will talk up and actually talk at the mic. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
worries.
It's just one of those things that I'm not going to our straight black yet because I need more room for contrast. Is more than anything what's going on. I'm using the blue so that we can create some of the contrast. Yeah, those mold lines. I'm using some of the blue to create other forms of contrast. So we're using contrast by hue is one of the ways that we're actually tinting the model too. So anyway, continuing right along, there are mold lines that I've missed on these models. Happens. We go back and we scrape. We scrape mold lines until they are gone. And if that mars up the model, no big deal. We stripping stripping paint, and this is something that I've learned fairly recently. Stripping paint, especially stripping paint off of a model like this, is not terribly difficult. I've been really careful all the way through this to use fairly thin coats of paint, both through the airbrush as well as on my brush here. I'm not using like a terribly, while scale 75 is very pigmented paint, I'm not using like super thick globby coats. You can see that every time I lay a brush stroke, it lays down basically flat onto the plastic right away. I'm not getting texture in it. And once I've put down paint on an area, I'm not coming back to it until it's dry. And actually, scale 75 is great for this. So if I take a look, the guy on the right hand side, I just laid down that paint. You can see how shiny it is versus the guy on the right. This is the guy I just, well, okay, let's go with this dude. This is the guy I just finished up with. You can see how matte that paint is. There's almost no shine or reflection coming back from it. Whereas you can see all the wet puddles that are still on this guy's butt. I'm not touching, I cannot touch that paint right now. If I touch my brush to that paint, it's going to, tear the paint. So there will be part of it that is dry and part of it that is still wet. And that wet part will rip off of other parts of it and it'll give me ugly texture. So I'm moving rapidly around the model. And not only moving rapidly, I'm not coming back to cover the same part until it is dry. So, just some thoughts. Uh, do give your models time to dry, but while it's in this thin and delicate state, if I make a mistake, or let's say like some of those mold lines that I removed doesn't come out as smooth as it possibly could, because that is really the goal of this paint job, is to keep everything very thin and very smooth. Um, cool, no problem. I have isopropyl alcohol around. Isopropyl alcohol on a cotton bud or on a cotton swab or a Q-tip will remove most acrylic paint. I have a layer of varnish underneath of these very thin coats of paint that I've been putting down. That coat of varnish is going to protect my base coat and all the rest, or my prime and all the rest of it. Isopropyl alcohol won't eat through it. And like 2 seconds of rubbing later with isopropyl alcohol will basically rub off all the paint that's on the top here, all these thin layers of paint. And as soon as it does that, cool, no problem. I just go in and repaint. The plastic underneath is relatively smooth. There's nothing that can't be undone pretty rapidly and efficiently. So if you do make a mistake, it's a little harder once the model, or once the paint has dried onto the model for a while. So if you've left it for a couple weeks or a month or more than that, there's still plenty of ways that you can strip models, but they aren't as nearly as easy as take a cotton bud and rub at it for a few seconds until the paint falls off, which is really what you get in the first couple of hours after you've laid down acrylic paint. So
Steve, I
yeah.
do hate to interrupt
No,
because
go
that
for
was
it.
because I actually have a squad of orc boys that I really need to strip the paint off so I can use them in Kill Team.
Ooh, Kill Team. I like Kill Team.
Yes. Oh, I love Kill Team. It is so good. It is one of the best skirmish level games I've played. Like, despite not ever having actually played a big game of Warhammer, I have managed to get in a few like weird skirmish games. I actually have one called um, Spectre Operations,
Oh,
which
Spectre
is
Ops.
no, not the one you're thinking of.
Oh,
It's not
not the one I'm
Spectre Ops.
thinking of.
Spectre Operations is a tabletop, modern to ultra modern skirmish level game.
Mm-hmm.
Also has rules so you can play with yourself, but it totally randomizes the opponent. It's very neat. But I will actually talk more about that on Tuesday because that was going to be one thing I talked about because they just started putting minis out again after a break for the pandemic.
Neat.
But my main reason for coming in is that it's 8:30 and I do believe it is time
Oh, it is time.
contest of champions.
The Contest of Champions. I feel like we should have a real theme for this at some point in time. Also, I should probably restart the music so that the music is playing in the background and it's not just you and I talking boringly. All right. So, Adam, do you want me to explain the Contest of Champions?
Yeah, if you want to, you can go right ahead.
All right. So, the Contest of Champions. The rules of this segment are the following. Okay, so each one of us, Adam and I, nominates a champion from any place or time in history, in fiction, or in history or fiction. They protect our honor. How do they defend our honor? Well, that is up to you guys. In the comments, write what you think the ultimate field of honor upon which Adam and my champions will face off and do battle. So we have some examples today that we'll go over in just a minute, but if you want to put it in the chat or in comments, we will be cycling through these this large and hopefully ever growing variety of honorable places for our champions to fight. Now, Adam,
Yes.
who are you nominating as your first champion?
Oh, I am nominating possibly the most harmless creature ever created in all science fiction.
Who's that?
I am nominating Tribbles from Star Trek the original series. They're cute, they're cuddly, they'll eat everything and make rabbits look like they're sterile. They breed so quickly that they almost destroyed the Starship Enterprise. In like a
That was a really good episode of TOS. I am not a huge the original series fan, but that is a good one.
That's actually the first episode of TOS that I consciously remember watching. Is that one?
That's fair. That is totally fair. For my champion, I nominate the Herald of Manwë, servant of the secret fire and flame of Arnor. Buddy, your tribbles aren't going to pass. For my champion, I choose Gandalf the Grey. Okay, so there's a few more rules. The champions, or both of our nominated champions, will have access to their canonical examples of their gear. So in the case of the tribbles, I assume that they can create more tribbles. In the case of, like, say, Optimus Prime, you decide which version of Optimus Prime you're taking. So you could take, like, the Beast Wars gorilla version of Optimus Prime, or Michael Day's dies in every movie Optimus, whatever. You choose the canon, you get that canon. So for my Gandalf the Grey, I'm choosing Gandalf from J.R.R. Tolkien's written book history. This includes all of the books where he is still Gandalf the Grey. So I could probably lump in at least Lord of the Rings in there, but definitely not The Hobbit. They don't treat Gandalf well in The Hobbit. Why is he in love with Galadriel? But you also can't use fanfic sources. So, like, I can't use the 4th grade fanfic I wrote about Gandalf the Grey, where he was also basically Superman. We're also using Pokemon rules, so our champions are launched into reality out of whatever void they were in before, and they understand the scenario. Like, they're not going to spend 20 minutes freaking out over wherever they ended up. They're here to do the thing. So Pokemon rules. We didn't have an audience, obviously, before Thursday or before this stream. So what you can do is, if you submit comments in the chat or down in the comments below, you guys can tell us what you think the ultimate field of honor for our guys to face off on is. Adam, do you think we should read all of the fields of honor that we've currently got, or do you think we should just go roll and see what happens?
I think we should do a combination of both. We should read off all the ones and be like, okay, now we're going to roll a d6 and figure out which one we're going to do.
All right, I'm for it. So, do you want me to read them off?
I can read them off if you want.
All right, go for it, man.
All right. Field of Honor number 1. A shapeless, timeless void of neutral buoyancy where there is inexplicably light that illuminates visible things, but there's otherwise nothing. The contest is to the death.
So Gandalf and the Tribbles appear in the middle of nothing and have to fight each other to the death. Got it. All right. The next one that we've got on there is a precariously narrow, inexplicably lacking in handrails or other basic safety features, dwarven bridge built over top of a chasm that reaches to the very roots of the mountain. We're fighting on Khazad-dûm, buddy. The battle is king of the hill. Hold the bridge.
Okay, number 3. Transport and assemble a king-size IKEA Malm bed frame and mattress with the companion's significant other. The contest is who can do it the fastest and without causing a fight with their significant other. I really don't think Gandalf is gonna have an edge in this one because he's just gonna argue with Lady Galadriel.
Oh,
that's just my.
Galadriel is not his significant other in the books. I chose book canon, not Hobbit.
Oh yeah.
Gandalf.
Yes.
Okay, our next contest is a hot dog eating contest. 10 minutes to eat as many hot dogs as they can from the restaurant at the end of the universe. I'm assuming that this is a reference to, oh god, what's it called? Douglas Adams.
Yes.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Wow, I got there eventually.
Yep, and it's also its own book too.
Oh, yeah, there you go. The restaurant at the end of the universe is one of the books out of A Hitchhiker's Guide, isn't it?
It's mentioned in Hitchhiker's Guide, but there is a book that is just about that as well. As far as I know,
Neat.
I have seen it at Chapters. Have not purchased it. It's been a while since I've read any Douglas Adams or really kind of been in the mood to read that genre of sci-fi. Though I do regularly watch the movie because it is fantastic.
Fair enough. All right. What's our next one, Adam?
The next one. Out-survive the other champion while being chased by Jason Voorhees from the abandoned summer camp from Friday the 13th. That is Camp Crystal Lake, for those not in the net.
Okay, so, yep.
Wait, are we talking like the first Friday the 13th movie?
That was my intention with that one, was you had to basically surviving Camp Crystal Lake until such time as Jason finally caught you, because we all know Jason's gonna eventually catch you. I'm really hoping that one survives past tonight and we roll it where somebody chooses Jason as their champion, but we'll get there someday. Okay, and our final scenario for this evening, our final possible scenario for this evening is amass $1 million in total wealth as fast as possible in the current economic reality of 2021, starting with only the materials found in the character's normal gear or in the champion's normal gear. So, yep, go from 0 to $1 million as fast as possible. That is how you would defend our honor. So, at this point in time, Adam and I get to argue back and forth. You're welcome in chat to try and remind us of which skills and which liabilities we are definitely forgetting for each one of those characters, because we're allowed to cheat. So you guys should totally help us cheat on this one. Go ahead, help us out. I'm going to roll a d6 here, and we're going to find out where exactly or what the contest of champions is going to be. So Gandalf versus Tribbles fighting over a hot dog eating contest. 10 minutes to eat as many hot dogs as they can from the restaurant at the end of the universe. Oh boy. Gandalf's in trouble. Gandalf is in so much trouble, guys.
Yes, because the key thing, I said Tribble. Or I said Tribbles, not Tribble. So there will be many a Tribble eating all of the hot dog. And then many more Tribbles eating more of the hot dog.
Yeah.
And so forth until the Tribbles consume the universe. Because I feel like if they weren't like checked or something by someone, they would eventually just eat everything until the universe ceased to exist and there was only Tribble.
This is the Futurama episode where Bender keeps subdividing himself in half, so they only has to do half as much work, but every time he divides himself, he is half the original size, or his clone is half his original size. At any rate, yeah. Oh boy, how is Gandalf going to get out of this one? We didn't say I wasn't allowed to start killing you en masse, did we? Can I start slaughtering you while I'm cramming hot dogs in my face, or while Gandalf is cramming hot dogs in his face hole?
See, I'm not sure if Gandalf could kill a Tribble.
Gandalf could definitely kill a Tribble. Oh, this is Gandalf the Grey, though, and I was thinking of Gandalf the White.
You're thinking Gandalf the White. Gandalf the White would... No problem. He'd wipe the floor of Tribbles. Gandalf the Grey would think Tribbles were adorable and cute and precious and probably keep one.
He's not Radagast the Brown, though. He's not, like... He likes the hobbits. Because according to one of the Tolkien letters, which is part of the written works of J.R.R. Tolkien, his fascination with the hobbits has more to do with he shows up in the Long Winter and is like really taken aback, first of all, that these things have existed in Middle Earth and just nobody thought to document literally anything about them. Like everybody in Middle Earth was like, yeah, hobbits exist, but who cares? And he's like, I kind of care. And while he was there like visiting them, he was like, oh boy, these guys like are actually fighters. Like they fought off a direwolf invasion, or I guess Tolkien calls them a direwolf invasion. They later become the wargs in later works of fiction. So Gandalf is impressed with their tenacity. I don't think that Tribbles display any sort of like super impressive traits that Gandalf would get distracted by in that way. And he does know that this is a hot dog eating contest, so he's certain to know that he's supposed to win.
Okay, that is fair.
So,
I will give you that one.
On top of that, I do have the secret fire. I mean, or Gandalf, in this case, is the wielder of the secret fire, Flame of Arnor, which is some nonsense because it's never explained anywhere else in the lore what either of those things is. But I have a feeling, and most Tolkien scholars have that sort of feeling, that it has something to do with actually being the Herald of Manwë. So he can wield some god power. At very least, he could probably summon Gwaihir, the king, or the king of the eagles, to show up with a bunch of eagles and help him eat a bunch of hot dogs. I'm still not sure that's going to out-eat a bunch of Tribbles.
Yeah, like Tribbles are the like ultimate eating machines because that's only one of 3 things they do. The other one being purr and breed.
Oh boy. Sean, you got any help for me? Anybody in chat got any help for me? Otherwise, I feel like Gandalf might go down in an early round, and I was not expecting this.
Yeah, I will be shocked if Tribbles make it to the second round because...
Help, chat. Will Tribbles become the ultimate champion?
Oh.
Let's see. What
Are
else can I
Tribbles
do as Gandalf?
Going to become the ultimate champion of Ultimate Destiny?
Ooh, I do not want to get into that because Mr. Rogers is already the ultimate champion of Ultimate Destiny. And I wouldn't want to take that away from Fred. Rest in peace, Fred. Or rest in power, I guess, Fred.
Oh, it's like Mr. Rogers, probably. You know, I'm going to say this. This is now canon in reality. Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, is the greatest human being to have ever existed to this point in time, and probably will be for a long time.
I've watched interviews with Fred Rogers' wife. I apologize that I forget her name, and we're getting a little sidetracked here. Fred Rogers was a phenomenal entertainer and an infinitely patient man. But I think it is, and she said the same thing too, I think it's a mistake to canonize real humans. He was a flawed individual. He was not good to his own kids. I think that Fred would probably admit to that. So, I absolutely agree with you that he was a great educator and a wonderful human being, but I'm not sure that he was the best person who has ever lived. I don't know that there is a best person, but that's my own hang-ups. We're talking about Gandalf, and I agree with you that Fred Rogers is a great man. He saved the Pittsburgh Penguins, just in case anybody is wondering.
be like 3 Pittsburgh Penguin fans out there.
Hey, it was a weird situation. They were going through like crisis with ownership right after they won a Stanley Cup, and Fred Rogers was part of the ownership that took them over. So, yeah, that's super weird. And Mario Lemieux, Fred Rogers and Mario Lemieux were part of that ownership group. So, it's a weird situation for all those hockey fans out there who want esoteric stories about hockey in the early 90s. At any rate, I am struggling here. I am trying to rack my brain for things that Gandalf could do.
Yeah, like I don't really have to end tribbles on this one because like
no, I got it. So
this is the arena of combat that I picked specifically for tribbles.
Okay, so part of the power of the rings is restoration, right? That is their restorative powers and the ability to hold the power of the elves to create. Yes.
Yeah, haven't read much token stuff outside of the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So
okay, that is essentially the power of the power of the three rings. Gandalf is the wielder of Nenya, the Ring of Fire. He has the ability to create fire. That is it. It's not just fire; it's the fire of life that he is able to create. At least as far as my reading. And again, if anybody in the comments or chat wants to tell me wrong, go for it. I'm up for a debate on that one. But I want to create so much material inside of the tribbles that they are constantly sated, but not of hot dogs. I don't know if that is borderline possible, I think, for Gandalf the Grey. I think that after about 10 minutes, he wouldn't be able to keep it up. He'd probably just straight up like do that thing where he just leaves and like goes into, you know, when he's laying on the mountainside and I ruined my foe upon the mountainside and there I slipped out of time and space. That would happen after the 10 minutes of him fighting. But remember, he is Gandalf the Grey when he fights the Balrog, and the Balrog is basically the same power level as he is. But he uses fire as a part of the fire of life as a part of that battle as well.
Oh, that is the white light.
Yeah. Also, his shield and all the rest of it that he wields against, like they render it as a shield in the movies. All that is a part of that power of like the taking basically the fight of life. I still don't know if you could get through 10 minutes of feeding tribbles constantly. I don't know if you could feed enough tribbles enough. You know what? Unfortunately,
feeding tribbles, which would then create more tribbles.
That's really what spells doom for Gandalf the Grey here. Adam, I'm ready to call it. I am ready to, short of some sort of miracle coming out of chat, to aid me here. Not unlike the Eagles showing up constantly to save Gandalf's ass. No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think there's enough Eagles, like, to eat enough hot dogs, because every tribble would just make, like, let's say one
number of more tribbles.
Yeah, one tribble makes 10 tribbles. Let's say I don't know how much they actually breed. I'd actually have to. I've looked at it. I know for a fact somewhere in the Star Trek lore there is probably a breakdown of tribble biology. But let's say one tribble makes 10 tribbles. Those 10 tribbles each make 10 tribbles, and so forth and so forth and so forth.
Geometric
like
growth is a bitch. All right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've let Gandalf down. Herald of Manwë defeated by lowly purring kittens. Not even
defeated
kittens, fluff balls. Defeated by balls of lint. All right, I'm calling it. Unfortunately, Gandalf is going to go down, and the tribbles will be our victors. So, down in the comments. Yes, Sean, he is so going down. All right, down in the comments, if you want to inputs for next week's stream, you can give us your suggestions for Ultimate Champion contest. We need something to knock off these tribbles. I cannot stand this. I do not think... I am outraged, sir. Outraged that Gandalf has not made it past the first contest of champions. He's already out. So, if you guys have ideas for the contest of champions, for ultimate tests for our champions to face, go ahead, put them in the comments, put them in chat. We would love to include you guys in our next stream. So you guys can see, just as Adam and I have been talking our way through, I've been going through just continuing to reinforce some of these colors, reinforce that sort of bluish gray hue that we're getting into some of the deeper and deeper areas. Again, I'm not moving on to black yet. We have plenty of time and space to get down to black. And you'll also notice that I'm not being particularly well refined with these edges or anything. I'm just sort of building in broad colors. When we want to build in higher points of light, we will come back. We will come back and touch those, and we will build that yellowy light with our white sand color again. Right? We're not gonna rush the process on this. We again are just putting down layers of paint in order to sort of build hue and build our midtones and into some of our shadow colors. Now, will we build all the way to shadows while we're just doing this sort of base coating step? No. I want to go through and get sort of loose scatterings of all of our shadow tones. So like if you look at this guy, you can see that we're fairly thick onto the shadow tone up at the top there. Just as we're mixing it, we'll come through and make a little bit more solid effort with some of this other stuff. Just make sure that we've got a solid mid-tone where it should be mostly mid-toned. And then we'll go through on the armor here, and we might not get to it tonight, but we will continue to work on these guys. So on Thursdays, we are doing our Blood Bowl team. So on this Thursday, we are working on the Orkland Raidaz. Next Thursday, we will be swapping over to our other team. And it is a different series of techniques for both of these teams. On our orcs, we're using we're trying to capture the spirit of our orcs. So we're trying to get a little bit rougher with the paint and really mowing through that stuff. With our dwarves, it is careful, considered craftsmanship all the way through. So you guys will get to see a little bit of a difference in technique and how that comes all the way through in painting style, really. And next Tuesday, so this is our next stream, we will be returning to Project Neverfallen. Adam, how are we doing with Neverfallen?
I think we are well on our way to establishing
we're almost started, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what,
Well,
let me give a little sneak peek. I managed to get another little bit of work done to our model. So for those of you who joined us on Tuesday, you will see that I have now gotten I've gotten our parchment on there. So we've got our little warrant or whatever it's going to end up being in the end. We've got that attached to our Justicar, so we've removed that we removed that on stream. But I did just spend a couple of minutes getting that piece of tin that we crumpled up, just getting it attached to the model so that we had a pretty good idea. I've got some cleanup to do. I've got a little bit of overspill with some super glue. We can get nice and closer so that you guys can see. There's a little bit of crystallized super glue on there. That's not a big deal. We can clean that up fairly easily. Gandalf could use fire. Those little fuzzballs would light up real good. That's the thing, is that Gandalf, though he controls the Ring of Fire, Sean, he doesn't actually control fire. Like, he doesn't make fire. The fire that he has, according to like Tolkien's lore, is the ability to create and maintain life. Not complex life. Like, he can't do what Eru Ilúvatar does, where he creates the three children, or creates, basically everything in the universe. He only has the ability to affect simple life. So even with the ring, he's allowed to enhance life that is. He's not allowed to, it's weird. Even though he is the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor, that doesn't mean he gets fireball. So we have to assume that Gandalf is a level 4 wizard. So it's a little disappointing.
I mean, even Gandalf as a level 20 D&D wizard, I still don't think he would have won a hot dog eating contest against Tribbles.
Absolutely, he would.
I honestly don't.
Like Raistlin Majir versus the Tribbles, it's not even a contest. Dentalist's spirit is just like, murder them all. And he's like, cool, I'm just gonna like cast Meteor Swarm and just keep casting it. And then I'm gonna wait for Caramon to come save me because I'm stupid. And I almost took Raistlin as my first one, but I love the Lord of the Rings too much.
Yeah, if you would have picked Raistlin, I think I have
someday,
a decent.
Maybe in the future.
Maybe someday.
If you guys have suggestions for other champions we should take, I'll take suggestions for champions. I can do wizards all day long because I like to fancy myself a wizardy boy. Not a Harry Potter wizardy boy, because those are the worst sorts of wizards, and they're not actually wizards, they're sorcerers. Everybody should know that. According to all of the lore everywhere, they're sorcerers because they're either born with magical blood or they're not. And when they are born with the magical blood, they get to do magic, and when they aren't, they don't. So they're not wizards. They didn't study to achieve any of the things that they're doing. Just their magical blood happens to make Deus Ex special boy. And yep, I hate Harry Potter. I hate it a lot. You can at me. I am at choiceminis on Instagram, or you can talk to me on Twitter, or you can join our Discord, which is also on our links now. And you can tell me all the various reasons why I should love Harry Potter, and I will tell you that I don't care. I mean, I love you guys, each one of you individually, all three of you who are currently watching. But Harry Potter is
And also the
garbage,
two that
and you
left.
should feel bad. Sorry?
And also the two left. We were up to 5 for a while.
Ooh, 5. Oh, that's all right.
Sean did also mention that hobbits invented golf after fighting a great battle with goblins.
It's true. The goblin leader's head fell in a hole, and the invention of that is an apocryphal story, I feel like, from Bilbo, but I love it nonetheless. It's better than Irishmen inventing it.
It was Scotsman.
Scotsman. Regardless. I like the whimsical version that J.R.R. Tolkien came up with instead of the mundane
actually prefer Robin Williams' version of how golf was invented.
You take so many strokes, it feels like you're having one.
Yeah, and they put a little flag at the end just to give you hope.
Are you going to put the flag close?
No, we're going to put sand and water in the way.
I do love that special, and I miss Mr. Williams.
I do. He was
a special kind of cocaine-fueled maniac.
Yes, he devoted his life to making other people laugh, and unfortunately, kind of neglected his own mental health, and that is something no one should ever do.
Yeah.
Even though I do understand that it is very hard at times, especially given our current situation.
Agreed. It's always hard, but self-care isn't a lie. It's not some BS that somebody came up with so that they could take an afternoon off. It's absolutely important. As somebody who has, for most of their life, suffered and alternatively dealt with that sort of affliction. I have pretty big issues with anxiety. It's just one of those things. Like, take the time that you need to feel good about yourself, and definitely, like, never feel bad about reaching out to others for help. Nobody is going to think you're a burden. Now would be the time where I would love to put up the National Suicide Hotline number, but it's pretty easy in Canada, and in particularly in Calgary, you can just call 911. Nobody's going to judge you. They have tons of people that deal with that.
John just came up with a little bit of a loophole that could have caused Gandalf to win. Having hobbits eat the tribbles.
Again, not part of his standard gear, though. I mean, like, something that he could get access to probably as easily as he could get access to.
That brings up the question: would hobbits eat tribbles though, or would they just like adopt them?
Yeah, I have a feeling that hobbits are gentle souls, and I don't know. I like my hobbits peaceful.
Yeah, like I feel at most they would adopt them and see like the tribbles as almost like kindred spirits who just enjoy the good things in life.
I mean, think of the crew of the Enterprise when they first meet the tribbles. They think they're just cute little buggers, right? Like, at no point in time are they like thinking that they're out for blood. It's not until that they start taking over, or have essentially taken over the Enterprise, that they really start freaking out about the whole situation. Like, Bones, at no point in time is Bones like, I think this is a bad plan, or is like Spock like, this is highly illogical. They're all just in for it until they're like, oh no, our entire space boat full of these things. Holy jeez. Yes, that is my interpretation of the Starship A, or Starship Enterprise crew, is holy jeez. And highly illogical.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of TOS, but I do love that episode, and the one where there's no parents. I don't remember what that one's called. it was nonsensical, but I was a child when I watched it, so I was like, oh, the idea of non-parents having
I do
this
enjoy
appealing.
the first appearance of Khan in Star Trek, the two-parter. It's pretty good.
Totally fair. Again, I'm not a huge TOS fan. My fandom really begins and ends with TNG. That was my speed and my time. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's good, bad, or otherwise. It's not better than your favorite series. It's not worse. It's just that is the one I grew up with, and I love Lieutenant Commander Data. And shut up, Wesley.
Hey, Data is a gem. Tasha Yar said so.
Wasn't she under some sort of hallucinogen at that point in time? Oh, Data, you
Oddly enough,
jam?
I think oddly enough they both were.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering that episode. And I
I
watched TNG like less than 2 months ago. I got through the entire series, so
Yeah, I just finished it like 6 months ago.
that's fair. I think that she disappeared because, if I remember correctly, it was more a contract dispute than anything else. That was why she got written out of the show. So that's a rather unfortunate way of settling that. But
Yeah. Oh,
is that
it was. Yeah, I remember that. But she did come back though. I'm
she
not
comes
as
back a lot.
not as Tasha Yar,
No,
but
no, she comes back as her Romulan half daughter.
doesn't she also come reappear as her Romulan, her half Romulan daughter?
Yes, sorry, I
Yeah.
said half daughter. She is her daughter, but Romulan. Yes.
Yes. The spitting image of her mother, the
Except for with
only blonde
Romulan eyes, fringes,
and hair.
eyebrows, eyebrows.
And
They're called eye
yeah.
fringes, right? That's the like technical term for them. Uh, Sean, I feel so bad. I did a bad job of defending Gandalf, and this is what we get for it. Now I
Yeah,
gotta
like
come up with another champion.
literally rolled the only thing on there that the Tribbles could have possibly won.
I don't know. I feel like the Tribbles could possibly have won the amass $1 million if only somebody wandered by and they managed to like cogently put together the thought of buy us for money, and then they could have just self-replicated. Because I don't know if Gandalf would ever really go for make a bunch of money now. Gandalf, I feel like he would get distracted.
He would get distracted after like his first $50, and dude, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to the library," and then we wouldn't see Gandalf again for like 6 years.
Yeah, especially Book Gandalf. Book Gandalf is not like on task ever. Until
No.
he is Gandalf the White and he gets sent back, and then he's like, guys, I died once and I didn't do the like one thing I'm here to supposedly do. I cannot do that again. Malway will like disown me and like turn me over to Eru himself, and that will be bad. So how about we actually save Middle Earth here? We good? We good. We're good. We can do it. Yeah.
We all know the hero of the Lord of the Rings series is Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I feel like the entire point of the Fellowship is that none of them can do it without each other, including Boromir. Like the hobbits. The ring doesn't go to Mordor without all of the Fellowship, right? Yeah. And as much as Sam does carry the team at certain points in time, they don't get there. And there's enough wise people that they cross paths with. Like, and by wise, I mean like Elrond's been alive for 6,000 years. Galadriel's been alive since the light of the trees. Like, they have been alive longer than there has been a Middle Earth. They aren't gonna just like leave this whole thing to chance. So that to me speaks that they needed all 9 of that team. Like there's nobody there who isn't there for a reason and a purpose. But Sean Bean dies, and it's funny. One does not simply go to Mordor or walk into Mordor.
Few Space Marines.
Sean Bean memes.
You could turn Sean B memes into a Sean B meme.
So the fun part is meme that I saw probably the other day was definitely So, the reason why Sean Bean has to die in every movie that he's in is because is as repayment for his name not rhyming. Because it should either be Sean Bean or Sean Bond. At any rate.
Oh, that
It's a bad
is.
joke, and I delivered it poorly, but you get where I'm going with this, right?
I appreciate that joke so much.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Stan Lee is Stan Lee as a champion. What canon of Stan Lee are we talking about, Sean? You should help me with this one, because clearly I failed on the last one. So, Stan Lee from the MCU as a champion. That's a good point. I will think on that one.
That would be a good one. Like the man, he'd like
Or
literally
is it just
the man of many
cameo
faces.
Stan Lee? Because cameo Stan Lee has been in way more things than just the MCU. All right, guys, it is that time. You have been wonderful to be around and be hanging out with, and I desperately appreciate each and every one of you that's hung out with us tonight. You can like us, you can subscribe if you love the video. Just give us a like in the description, leave a comment. If you like what we do, go ahead and subscribe. Click on the little bell icon so that you know every time we go live. We stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. That is 5 o'clock on the Pacific Coast. That is 8 o'clock on the East Coast. Adam, where can people find you?
People can find me on IG at beach_vacation_Mando. And you can follow my extremely slow process on doing my first cosplay as a Mandalorian.
And if you want to follow me, you can follow me as choiceminis on your social media of choice. I have finally signed up for TikTok, and I am going to lose several days of my life. You can find me on Twitter, on IG. You can find us on Facebook. You can also go to the link in the description that heads to our Willow link. It'll give you all the places you can find us, find our merch, and find more of our streams. If you have any comments, feedback, anything else, you can leave it in the comments. You can email it to us at choiceminis.com. And that is going to be it for this evening. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please go out there, do good in the world. Don't ignore white supremacy. Have a good night, everybody.
Stop white supremacy with a brick to the teeth.
We're not advocating for violence, but I'm also not against it. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.